"I can fix it." And they laughed at her, not realizing she was the daughter of the automotive legend. Jennifer Parker looked at little Emily with a mixture of shame and despair. Her 4-year-old daughter had once again escaped from home and run to the neighborhood auto repair shop, holding a wrench she could barely carry. That's when she heard the loud laughter coming from inside the shop. Emily was standing before a silver Maverick with engine trouble, surrounded by 4 mechanics in red uniforms who couldn't stop laughing. "I can fix it," said the little girl with a firm voice, pointing to the engine. The men laughed even louder. Frank Miller, the shop owner, approached with a mocking smile. "Well, look here, folks, we've got a little mechanic," he said, provoking more laughter. "Go play with dolls, girl. A child's place is in school, not messing with cars." "But I know what's wrong," insisted Emily, her blue eyes shining with determination. "The noise isn't normal. Listen here, you little pest." Frank bent down to her level with a threatening tone. "If I see you here again, I'll call child services. Now get out of here before I lose my patience." Jennifer finally arrived, running, out of breath. "Emily, for heaven's sake, how many times have I told you not to come here?" she said, picking up her daughter. "Sorry for the trouble, Mr. Miller," Jennifer murmured, embarrassed. "She keeps running away from home to come here." "Control your daughter better, Jennifer. Next time I won't be patient," replied Frank, returning under the hood. On the way back home, Emily cried softly. "Why don't they believe me, Mommy? I know I can fix it." Jennifer sighed. How to explain to a 4-year-old that the world wasn't ready to accept certain things yet? How to tell her that she herself doubted her daughter's unusually early interest in engines and cars? "Emily, my love, you're still too little. Mechanics is for grown-ups." "But Daddy was a mechanic," said Emily, wiping her tears with the back of her hand dirty with grease. Jennifer felt her heart tighten. Michael had passed away when Emily was just 2 years old, and the girl had few memories of him. But some things seemed to have been etched in her mind inexplicably. That night, while Emily slept, Jennifer went up to the attic for the first time in years. There were the boxes with Michael's belongings that she had never had the courage to touch. Perhaps it was time to understand where her daughter's strange passion came from. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us, who are just starting out, now continuing. The years passed and Emily grew up surrounded by old automobile manuals that Jennifer had found in the attic. The girl devoured every page as if they were fairy tales, memorizing diagrams and procedures with astonishing ease. By 12, Emily could already identify car problems just by the sound of the engine. Jennifer, who worked as a cleaner in 3 different homes to make ends meet, watched her daughter's obsession with growing concern. "Emily, you need to think about your future," Jennifer would say every morning before leaving for work. "Study to be a teacher, a nurse, anything that's suitable for a young lady from a good family." "But Mom, I want to work with cars," Emily would answer, flipping through a 1985 manual that was completely outdated. "Honey, be realistic. Women don't work in repair shops. The world doesn't work that way." At school, Emily was seen as strange by her classmates. During recess, while other girls played house or talked about makeup, she stayed alone drawing engines in her notebook. The physics teacher, Robert Thompson, a middle-aged man with a graying mustache, noticed the girl's exceptional talent during a lesson on simple machines. "Emily, may I speak with you after class?" he asked one day. She nodded, excited. Finally, someone had recognized her interest. "You have a natural talent for mechanics," said Robert when they were alone. "I can give you some private lessons if you'd like, but it would have to be our little arrangement." Something in his tone of voice made Emily feel uncomfortable. The way he looked at her, the way he stood too close. Instinctively, she stepped back. "No, thank you, Professor," she said, quickly leaving the room. From that day on, Emily began avoiding physics classes, preferring to skip them rather than deal with Robert Thompson's insistent looks. Her grades plummeted, and Jennifer was called to the school. "Your daughter is having behavioral problems," said the principal, Mrs. Henderson, a stern woman with thick glasses. "She skips classes, and when she is present, she draws cars instead of paying attention." "Emily, what is happening with you?" asked Jennifer on the way home. "Nothing, Mom. I just don't like school anymore." Jennifer didn't know what else to do. Money was tight, Emily was closing herself off more and more, and she felt completely lost as a single mother. At 15, Emily had become a quiet and introverted teenager. Her only moments of joy were when she could escape to observe the cars on the street, trying to guess their problems by the sound of their engines. One day, a poster tacked to the corner lamppost caught her attention. Frank's shop was offering a reward of $5,000 to anyone who could solve a problem with a 1973 Stallion 911 owned by an important collector. No mechanic in the city has been able to identify the defect, the ad said. Deadline: 48 hours. Emily felt her heart race. She knew that model. She had studied every detail in her father's manuals. She knew that the Stallions from that era had a specific problem with the ignition system that few knew about. That night she couldn't sleep. Couldn't. The reward would be enough to help Jennifer with the mounting debts, but how would a 15-year-old teenager convince a shop full of grown men to let her work on a very expensive car? The next day, Emily dressed in her best clothes and walked to the shop. The same Frank from years ago was there, now with more belly and less hair, shouting orders to his employees. "Excuse me," said Emily, trying to sound confident. The mechanics stopped what they were doing. Some chuckled softly upon recognizing her. "Isn't that the girl who used to run away from home to come here?" commented Chuck, one of the oldest mechanics. "What do you want, girl?" asked Frank irritably. "I came about the Stallion ad. I know what the problem is." The silence that followed was broken by an explosion of laughter. The four mechanics leaned on each other, laughing until they were out of breath. "You know what the problem is?" Frank wiped tears from his eyes. "Girl, we have 4 mechanics here with over 20 years of experience each. If we can't fix it, what makes you think a kid can?" "I've studied this model," replied Emily, keeping her calm despite the humiliation. "I know exactly what could be wrong." "Oh yeah? Then tell me, Doctor," mocked Jason, the youngest mechanic in the group. "The ignition system in these models has a peculiarity. The secondary coil often has intermittent failures that only appear when the engine is hot. That's why you can't identify the problem in normal tests." Frank's mocking smile faded a little. That explanation was too specific for a teenager. "Where did you learn that?" he asked, suspicious. "In my father's manuals." "And who was your father? Some backyard mechanic?" Emily hesitated. Jennifer always avoided talking about Michael, and she only knew vague details about him. His name was Michael Anderson." The mechanics exchanged glances. The name meant nothing to them. "Listen here, girl," said Frank, losing his patience. "Stop wasting our time with these fantasies. The car's owner is coming to pick it up tomorrow morning. If we can't fix it, we'll have to return it and lose our reputation. This is no joke." "Then let me try," insisted Emily. "If I can't do it, you lose nothing." "Yes, we do. If you break something, who's going to pay? Do you have $50,000 in your pocket to buy another Stallion?" Emily lowered her head, defeated. She knew there was no arguing against that. "Go away, girl, and don't come back here with this nonsense," said Frank, going back under the hood. On her way home, Emily felt a mix of anger and frustration. She was sure she could solve the problem, but no one would give her a chance. When she got home, she found Jennifer crying at the kitchen table, with several bills spread out in front of her. "Mom, what happened?" "Nothing, honey." "I'm just organizing the bills." Jennifer tried to hide her tears, but Emily saw the eviction notice partially hidden under the other bills. "Are they going to kick us out of our home?" Jennifer couldn't lie. "I'm 3 months behind on the rent. The landlord said if I don't pay by Friday, we'll have to leave." Emily felt her stomach turn. It was Thursday. Only 1 day left. "How much is it?" $2,500. Jennifer sighed. "Where am I going to get that money?" Emily thought about the repair shop's reward. $5,000. Enough to pay the rent and still have money left for other expenses. That night, she didn't sleep a wink. A risky plan was forming in her mind. The next morning, Emily woke up before sunrise. She put on dark clothes and grabbed a basic set of tools she had borrowed from a house where Jennifer worked. The plan was simple: get into the repair shop during the early morning, fix the Stallion, and leave a note explaining how she had done it. The repair shop was on a busy street during the day, but in the early morning it was completely deserted. Emily knew the place like the back of her hand, after so many years of watching from afar. She found a side window that led to the bathroom and managed to force it open without making much noise. Her heart was beating so hard she was sure someone would hear it. The stallion was in the center of the shop, illuminated by the street lights coming through the windows. It was a beautiful machine, even with its problems. Emily approached it respectfully, as if standing before a work of art. She carefully opened the hood and turned on a small flashlight. Immediately, she saw what she was looking for, exactly as she had imagined. The secondary ignition coil showed clear signs of intermittent overheating. She worked with surgical precision, removing the defective part and examining each component. The problem was more complex than she had initially thought. It wasn't just the coil, but all the wiring connected to it was compromised. When she was about to install the new wiring she had brought from home, a bright light blinded her. "Stop right there, you thief!" Emily froze. It was Bobby, the repair shop's night watchman. A large, intimidating man she had always seen from afar. "I'm not a thief," she said, trying to stay calm. "I'm fixing the car." "Fixing nothing. You're stealing parts. Stay right there while I call the boss." Within minutes, Frank arrived at the shop visibly irritated, still in his pajamas. Behind him came the other 3 mechanics. "I can't believe this," said Frank when he saw her. "The crazy girl is back, and now she's a thief too." "I'm not stealing anything," Emily tried to explain. "I came to fix the stallion. The problem is in the secondary coil." "Secondary coil?" Frank looked at her in surprise. "How do you know that?" "Because I studied this model. I know exactly what's wrong." Jason, the youngest mechanic, approached and examined the work she had started. "Frank, look at this," he said, pointing to the parts Emily had removed. She really identified the problem. "Look at the state of this wiring." "It's impossible," murmured Chuck. "We tested everything. How did a 15-year-old girl see what we missed?" "Because you only tested with the cold engine," explained Emily. "The defect only appears when the engine warms up. That's why you couldn't reproduce the problem." Frank looked at her with a mixture of disbelief and curiosity. "All right," he said after a long silence. "Prove to me you can fix it. But if you break anything, your mother will have to sell the house to pay for it." "Frank, you can't be serious," protested Chuck. "It's a nearly 50-year-old stallion. It's worth more than our entire shop." "She came here in the middle of the night," replied Frank. "She's either very brave or very crazy. Let's see which one it is." Emily felt her hands tremble, but she took a deep breath and continued the work. Every move was calculated, every connection checked twice. The mechanics watched in silence, some hoping she would fail, others genuinely curious. 2 hours later, Emily closed the hood. "You can start it," she said, wiping sweat from her forehead. Frank approached hesitantly and turned the key. The engine started immediately with a smooth, powerful purr that hadn't been heard in weeks. "My God," murmured Jason. "She did it." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of a car arriving. It was Edward Williams, the owner of the stallion, who had decided to stop by early to see if there was any progress. "Did you manage to fix it?" he asked, still in his car. "Yes, we did, Mr. Edward," replied Frank, trying to take the credit. "It wasn't you," said Emily, finding courage from somewhere she didn't know she had. "I was the one who fixed it." Edward looked at the teenager in surprise. "You? But you must be, how old?" 15. "And where did you learn to work on classic stallions?" "From my father's manuals." "Is your father a mechanic?" "He was," replied Emily, lowering her eyes. "He passed away when I was little." "What was his name?" "Michael Anderson." Edward looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. His expression changed completely. "Michael Anderson? The Michael Anderson who worked with race cars?" "I don't know," said Emily, confused. "My mother doesn't like to talk about him." "Good heavens." Edward ran his hand through his hair. "Michael Anderson was the best sports car mechanic this country has ever had. He took care of my cars for 15 years. He was a genius, a true artist." The mechanics in the shop exchanged glances, surprised. Emily felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Are you sure? She asked, her voice choked. Absolutely. Michael was a legend in the automotive world. No one understood engines like he did. And you, Edward looked at her with growing admiration. You have the same talent in your eyes. Frank cleared his throat, trying to get attention. Well, Mr. Edward, the important thing is the car is fixed. Now about the payment. The payment goes to whoever did the work, said Edward firmly, taking $5,000 from his wallet and handing it to Emily. And I want to talk to you about a proposal. Emily looked at the money in her hands as if it were a mirage. $5,000, more money than she had ever seen in her life. What kind of proposal? She asked. I have a collection of classic cars that need special care. I'd pay well for someone who truly knows their stuff. Would you be interested? Before Emily could respond, Frank interrupted. Mr. Edward, with all due respect, but that's crazy. She's underage, has no professional experience. My shop can handle your collection much more safely. Your shop couldn't fix a basic ignition problem, Edward replied dryly. This girl solved in 2 hours what you couldn't in 2 weeks. It was luck, muttered Chuck. Or she already knew what the problem was before coming here. Emily felt anger growing inside her. Luck? You want me to prove it wasn't luck? How? Provoked Jason. Bring another car with problems. Any car. I'll identify the issue right in front of you. Edward smiled. Interesting. I accept this demonstration. Frank, do you have any problematic cars here? We have Gerald's Civic, said Frank reluctantly. It's been here 3 days, and we can't figure out why it stalls on hills. Perfect, said Emily. Take me to it. The Blue Power Civic was at the back of the shop, hood open and tools scattered around. Emily approached and asked Frank to start the car. The engine ran normally at idle, but when Frank accelerated, it began to misfire. For you can turn it off, said Emily after listening for 2 minutes. Well, doctor, what's the diagnosis? Mocked Chuck. Fuel pump. It's working, but with insufficient pressure. Probably the filter is clogged, causing pump overload. That's why it works fine when stationary but fails under demand. The mechanics exchanged glances again. Frank went to the workbench, grabbed a pressure gauge, and connected it to the fuel system. Pressure is at 35 psi, he said, checking the equipment. Should be at 50. That's exactly what I said, Emily replied calmly. Edward began to laugh, but not mockingly. It was genuine admiration. Michael was right when he said talent isn't taught, it's inherited, he said. Emily, my offer still stands. But first I want to introduce you to some people. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The following week, Edward took Emily to see his private collection. The garage at his property in the city's upscale neighborhood housed dozens of classic cars: Beetle 1969, Caprice SS, Chevette, Americana, and various other American automotive relics. My dream has always been to preserve our country's automotive history, explained Edward as they walked among the cars. Your father helped me restore half of this collection. My mother never told me he worked with classic cars, said Emily, gently running her hand over the blue body of a Cougar. Jennifer probably has her reasons, Edward replied diplomatically. But what matters now is that you inherited his gift. I want you to take care of these cars. But I have no professional experience, not even a diploma. You'll gain experience. And diploma? Edward smiled. Talent is worth more than paper on the wall. Emily started working Saturdays at Edward's collection. He paid $300 per day, more than Jennifer made in a week of cleaning. For the first time in years, they could pay their bills on time. But not everything was rosy. At school, Emily's classmates found out about her job and increased the teasing. Look, the mechanic is here, laughed Heather, one of the popular girls in class. I bet you smell like diesel oil. At least I have a job, Emily would reply, trying not to show that the jokes hurt her. Job? You mean playtime? Heather continued. Tinkering with cars isn't work for a woman. Professor Robert Thompson, whom Emily continued to avoid, would make spiteful comments whenever he had the opportunity. Miss Anderson, if you spent less time playing mechanic and more time studying physics, perhaps your grades would be better, he said during a class. Mechanics is applied physics, Professor, replied Emily, surprising everyone. Oh, really? Then explain the relationship between torque and horsepower to me. Emily stood up and went to the board. Confidently, she drew diagrams and explained concepts that left the entire class speechless. Torque is the rotational force the engine produces, measured in Newton meters or kilogram force per meter. Horsepower is the work done per unit of time, which in the case of engines is calculated by multiplying torque by rotation and dividing by a constant, she explained, while writing the formulas on the board. Robert Thompson swallowed dryly. The explanation was perfect. Very well, he said reluctantly. You may sit down. But Emily wasn't finished. Professor, may I ask a question? You may. Why do you always try to humiliate me when I demonstrate knowledge? Shouldn't it be the opposite? The silence in the room was deafening. Robert felt all eyes on him. I just think you should focus on traditional studies, he stammered. Isn't mechanics a traditional study? Countered Emily. You yourself said it's applied physics. From that day on, Robert stopped bothering her. Some classmates even began to respect her more, but Emily knew she still had a lot to prove. Months passed, and her reputation began to spread quietly among the local car collectors. Edward recommended her work to close friends, always emphasizing her exceptional talent. One day, a different challenge arrived. Richard Martin, a well-known businessman in town, approached Edward with a specific problem. I have a Caprice SS 1978 that no shop can get to work properly, explained Richard. I've spent a fortune trying to restore it, but there's always some new problem. Emily can take a look, suggested Edward. Emily? Who's Emily? A very talented young mechanic, daughter of Michael Anderson. Richard nearly choked on his coffee. Michael Anderson, the guy who revolutionized engine tuning in the United States? Exactly. I knew Michael personally, said Richard, emotional. He tuned the engine of the first Caprice I raced in the 80s. He was a genius. I didn't know he had a daughter. Would you like to meet her? The following Saturday, Richard arrived at Edward's property driving the problematic Caprice. The car was truly in bad shape. Strange noises, loss of power, excessive fuel consumption. Emily examined the engine carefully. It was a complex build, with modifications that most mechanics wouldn't understand. Who made these modifications? She asked. Several different mechanics over the years, replied Richard. Why? Because each one used a different philosophy. The result is an engine without harmony. The parts don't work together. Can you fix it? I can, but it will be a lot of work. I need to redo practically the entire build. How long? 2 weeks working every day. And how much will it cost? Emily hesitated. She had never quoted a job this big. $3,000, she said, thinking she was asking for too much. Richard laughed. Young lady, for the work you're proposing to do, that's practically free. You can start whenever you want. During the next 2 weeks, Emily practically lived in Edward's garage. She completely disassembled the engine, studied every part, planned a new configuration that respected the car's original characteristics but significantly improved its performance. Jennifer was worried about her daughter's obsessive dedication. Emily, you're neglecting school, she would say. Your grades are dropping. Mom, I make in 2 days what you make in a month, argued Emily, and I'm learning more here than in any classroom. But what about your future? You can't live on mechanics alone. Why not? Daddy did. Your father? Jennifer stopped, as she always did when the subject was Michael. Mom, why do you never talk about him? Emily finally found the courage to ask directly. Jennifer let out a deep sigh. Because it hurts, honey. It hurts a lot. But I have a right to know who my father was. You're right, agreed Jennifer after a long silence. Come sit here with me. Emily put down her tools and sat next to her mother on the porch of their house. Your father really was a legend, began Jennifer, her eyes welling up. He had a special gift for understanding engines. He started as a simple apprentice in a small shop, but within a few years he was already preparing cars for the biggest competitions in the country. And how did you two meet? I worked as a secretary at a company that sponsored races. Michael always went there to pick up parts and equipment. He was different from other men. Kind, smart, passionate about what he did. Emily smiled, imagining her young parents meeting. And why don't you want me to follow the same path? Because the world of mechanics is still very male-dominated, honey. Your father faced prejudice for coming from a poor family. Imagine you being a woman. I don't want you to go through the humiliations I know you'll face. But if I give up, how will I honor his memory? Jennifer didn't know what to say. Deep down, she knew Emily was right. The next day, when Emily finished preparing the Caprice, Richard arrived with two of his collector friends. They wanted to see the work of the prodigy girl, as Edward had called her. "You can start it," said Emily, nervous about the audience. Richard turned the key and the engine roared with impressive power. The sound was harmonic, powerful, perfect. "This isn't the same car," said one of Richard's friends, impressed. "Yes, it is," smiled Emily. "It just needed a little TLC." "Young lady, you have a future in this field," said the other friend. "My name is Paul Henry. I have a shop specializing in classic cars in Chicago. If you ever want to work professionally, look me up." Emily kept the card Paul gave her as if it were a treasure. In the following months, her reputation grew. More collectors began to seek her out, always through referrals. Jennifer noticed how her daughter was more confident, happier. But not everything was perfect. At school, the nasty comments continued, and some teachers clearly disapproved of her choice. "Emily, you are wasting your potential," said her English teacher, Mrs. Stewart. "A smart girl like you should think about going to engineering school, not getting dirty in a shop." "Mechanics also requires intelligence," replied Emily. "I'm not saying it doesn't, but you could be an engineer, design cars, not just fix them." Emily thought a lot about that. Maybe Mrs. Stewart was right. Maybe she could dream bigger. She decided to research automotive engineering. She discovered that to get into a good college, she would need to drastically improve her grades and dedicate herself more to traditional studies. For a few weeks, she tried to balance working on cars with her school studies, but it was humanly impossible to handle everything. One day, she came home completely exhausted and found Jennifer crying again. "Mum, what is it now?" "I lost one of my jobs," said Jennifer between sobs. "Mrs. Cameron said she doesn't need a cleaning lady anymore." Emily did the math in her head. Without that income, they would have financial difficulties again. "Don't worry, Mom. I'll work more. Edward said he has friends who want my services." "Emily, you can't carry this responsibility alone. You're still a child." "I'm 15, Mom, and I have a talent that can support us." "What about school? Your college plans?" "I'll have to choose," said Emily with a maturity she shouldn't have had at her age. That night she made a decision that would change her life forever. She would drop out of school and dedicate herself fully to mechanics. Jennifer tried to dissuade her, but Emily was determined. In the following days, she formalized her withdrawal from school and began working full-time. Edward was worried about the decision. "Emily, formal education is important. Maybe we should think of a way for you to balance both things." "There's no way, Mr. Edward. I need to help my mother. And honestly, I'm learning more here than I ever did in school." "Your father always said the same thing," Edward commented with melancholy. "But he regretted not studying more. He always said that technical knowledge without a theoretical foundation has limitations." "I can study on my own." "Yes, you can. In fact, I have a library with technical books that might interest you." Emily began dedicating her mornings to theoretical studies and her afternoons to practical work. It was an exhausting but rewarding routine. Her fame began to spread beyond the circle of collectors. Specialized workshops from other cities began to hear about the young prodigy who solved problems that experienced mechanics couldn't. One day she received an unexpected call. "Hello, is this Emily?" said an unknown male voice. "Speaking." "My name is Brian Fields. I own a workshop in Philadelphia. I heard about your work and wanted to make you a proposal." "What kind of proposal?" "I have a client with a very specific problem, a Liberty Maverick 1977 that no one can get to work properly. I'll pay $5,000 if you can fix it." "Where is the car?" "Here in Philadelphia. I would cover your travel and accommodation." Emily looked at Jennifer, who was listening to the conversation. "Can I think about it and get back to you?" "Of course, but I need an answer by tomorrow." After hanging up, Mother and daughter looked at each other. "It's very far," said Jennifer worriedly. "It's a unique opportunity, Mom. $5,000. What if it's some kind of scam? You don't know this man." "I can ask Edward to check his reputation." Edward confirmed that Brian Fields was a respected professional in Pennsylvania, owner of one of the most traditional workshops in Philadelphia. "But I'm going with you," said Edward. "A 15-year-old girl can't travel alone to solve problems for strangers." The trip to Philadelphia was the first time Emily had left her hometown. The Liberty Maverick was indeed in terrible condition. Several mechanics had already tried to fix it without success. "The owner is a very demanding gentleman," explained Brian. "He bought this car 10 years ago and spent a fortune trying to restore it, but it always has problems." Emily examined the engine carefully. It was an old build, probably from the 80s, with several poorly done amateur modifications. "Can I speak with the owner?" she asked. "Of course, he's right here." Oliver Smith was a 65-year-old retired gentleman who had bought the Maverick to fulfill a youthful dream. "Miss, I've already spent over $20,000 on this car," he said sadly. "It's starting to affect the harmony in my home. My wife says I'm throwing money away." "May I ask where you had the modifications done?" "At several different workshops. Each one said something different about what needed to be done." "There's the problem," said Emily. "Each workshop did one part without talking to the others. The result is an engine that doesn't work as a whole. And can you fix it?" "I can, but it will be expensive. I need to redo everything from scratch." "How much?" $15,000 including parts. Oliver sighed. "That's a lot of money. I'll have to think about it." That night at the hotel, Emily spoke with Edward about the situation. "Do you think I asked for too much?" "On the contrary, you're charging less than you should, but perhaps we should have offered a guarantee." "What kind of guarantee?" "If it doesn't completely solve the problem, you return the money." The next morning, Emily approached Oliver with the new proposal. "If I can't get your car to work perfectly, I won't charge anything," and she said. "And if you can, you pay $15,000 and also get a 6-month warranty." Oliver looked at this 15-year-old girl offering a guarantee that no professional mechanic had ever offered. "All right," he said, "but on one condition. I want to watch all the work." During the following 2 weeks, Oliver was fascinated watching Emily work. She completely disassembled the engine, catalogued every part, identified problems that previous mechanics hadn't noticed. "How do you know so much about this model?" he asked one day. "My father had the original manuals," explained Emily, adjusting the distributor timing. "I studied everything about Ford's V8 engines from the 70s. "Did your father teach you?" "Not directly. He passed away when I was little. I learned on my own, reading the materials he left behind." "What kinds of materials?" "Technical manuals, personal notes, even some letters from customers thanking him for his work." Oliver became thoughtful. There was something familiar about those details. "Would you mind if I looked at some of those notes?" "Of course not. I brought some with me." When Emily showed him the papers, Oliver turned pale. "My God," he murmured, recognizing the handwriting. "Michael really was your father. You knew him?" "Knew him?" Oliver laughed nostalgically. "Young lady, your father saved my racing career. In 1985, I was about to give up because my car always broke down during competitions. It was Michael who discovered that the problem wasn't mechanical, it was in how I drove. He taught me to respect the engine." Emily stopped working and looked at him with emotion. "Tell me more about him." "Michael had a different philosophy. He said that every engine has a personality and that a good mechanic needs to talk to the machine, not just fix it." "He really said that?" "He said it and proved it every day. The cars he worked on lasted longer, ran better, rarely broke down. It was like he had a sixth sense." "And what happened to him?" Oliver hesitated before answering. "He was working on a special project when he passed. A revolutionary engine that could change the entire domestic industry. No one ever knew what happened to the plans." Emily felt a shiver. There were boxes in the attic that she had never opened, with materials that Jennifer said were too technical. When she finished working on the Maverick, the result was spectacular. The engine ran better than it did when it left the factory. Oliver was so impressed that he began spreading the word about Emily's work to other collectors. Back in her hometown, Emily rushed home and went up to the attic. She found the boxes Jennifer had mentioned and began opening them one by one. What she found took her breath away. Detailed plans for a completely innovative domestic engine, notes on energy efficiency, diagrams of parts she had never seen before. "Mom!" she shouted, coming down with the papers. "You need to see this." Jennifer looked at the documents with a surprised expression. "Where did you find this?" "In the attic." "Mom, did you know Dad was developing a revolutionary engine?" He always talked about some projects, but I never really understood." "This could change everything," said Emily, examining the technical drawings. "If these projects work, it would be possible to produce more efficient and cheaper engines." "Emily, that's way beyond our reality." "No, Mother, this is exactly our reality. Daddy left this for me to continue his work." Emily spent the following weeks obsessively studying her father's projects. The more she understood, the more impressed she was with the genius of the proposed solutions. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Determined to test her father's theories, Emily convinced Edward to let her modify the engine of an old Beetle he had in his collection. It would be a laboratory to see if Michael's ideas really worked. "Emily, this is risky," warned Edward. "If it goes wrong, I could lose a valuable car. Trust me, and if it goes wrong, I'll buy you another Beetle just like it." "With what money?" "I'll figure something out." The work took 2 months. Emily applied every concept from her father's projects, modifying pistons, altering the combustion, creating a handmade injection system based on the drawings she had found. When she finally started the engine, the result surprised her. The Beetle used 30% less fuel and had 40% more power than an original engine. "This is impossible," said Edward, checking the numbers several times. "How is a 1969 engine performing better than modern engines?" "Because my father thought outside the box," Emily replied proudly. "He anticipated solutions that the industry only discovered decades later." The news of the modified Beetle spread quickly among enthusiasts. Within a few weeks, Emily had a line of customers wanting similar modifications, but the success brought unexpected problems. Frank, from the shop where it all began, showed up at Jennifer's house one evening. "I need to talk to you about your daughter," he said, trying to sound serious. "What did Emily do? She's stealing our customers. Several car owners who used to come here are now seeking her out." "And what's the problem? If she does a better job..." "The problem is, she doesn't have a license. She doesn't have a registered business. She doesn't pay taxes. This is unfair competition." Jennifer became worried. She didn't understand anything about business legalization. "What are you suggesting?" "That she come work for me. Officially. I'll pay a fair wage, and she'll learn to work properly with supervision. I'll talk to her." When Emily heard the proposal, she laughed out loud. "Work for Frank, the man who humiliated me since I was little." "Honey, maybe he's right about the legal issue," pondered Jennifer. "Mother, he just wants to use me to attract the customers who are coming to me. If I work for him, who will get the credit? But you need professional guidance. I have Edward, and now I have Daddy's projects. Emily, be realistic. You can't live in informality forever." Emily knew her mother was right, but the idea of working for Frank revolted her. A few days later, the situation got complicated. A client of Emily's, unhappy with some work she had done on his Sprint, decided to sue her. "My car's engine died 2 weeks after she worked on it," complained Dave Richards, a local merchant. "I want my money back and compensation." Jennifer panicked. They didn't have money for a lawyer, much less to compensate anyone. "Emily, what did you do to his car?" asked Jennifer, desperate. "I just replaced the clutch and tuned the engine," replied Emily, confused. "Everything was working perfectly when I delivered it. Edward offered to help, recommending a lawyer he knew. But even with legal help, the situation was complicated. The problem is that you don't have professional registration," explained the lawyer, Dr. Harrison. "Technically, any work you do can be considered unlicensed practice," he said. "But she has proven talent," argued Edward. Talent doesn't matter before the law. She needs proper documentation. Emily felt cornered. To get a professional license, she would need technical training. To get technical training, she would need to go back to school. But if she went back to school, she wouldn't have time to work and help Jennifer. Meanwhile, Dave Richards was spreading negative comments about her all over town. "Don't hire that girl," he would say at the local bar. "She ruined my car and now plays dumb." Emily's reputation began to be questioned. Some clients cancelled already scheduled services. "Maybe you should accept Frank's offer," Jennifer suggested one evening. "At least you'd have the protection of working for a registered company. Mom, you don't understand. If I work for him, I'll never be able to grow professionally. I'll always be the assistant he can fire whenever he wants. But we're at risk of losing everything because of the lawsuit." Emily spent the whole night thinking. The next morning, she made a drastic decision. "I'm going to prove that the problem with Dave Richards' car wasn't caused by me," she announced. "How?" "I'm going to ask to examine the car again. If I can prove the defect isn't related to the work I did, he'll have to drop the lawsuit. And if you can't prove it, then I'll agree to work for Frank." Getting access to Dave Richards' car wasn't easy. He was suspicious and hostile. But when Edward offered to cover the costs for an official expert to oversee the analysis, Dave Richards agreed. "But if you prove nothing, besides paying the compensation, you'll also have to pay for the expert," he warned. Emily accepted the terms. The expert, a retired mechanical engineer named Professor Hamilton, arrived on a Saturday morning. He was a serious man with thick glasses and completely white hair. "Miss Emily, I've heard you are very young for this profession," he said politely. "I'm 15, she replied. "And how did you learn mechanics?" "Self-taught mostly." Professor Hamilton seemed skeptical but maintained professional politeness. "Very well, let's get to work." For the next 3 hours, Emily systematically disassembled all the components she had worked on in Dave Richards' car. Professor Hamilton observed every movement, taking notes. "The clutch is perfect," he said, examining the parts. "Impeccable work." "And the engine?" asked Dave Richards nervously. "The engine." Professor Hamilton made a dramatic pause. "The engine is better than when it left the factory." "Then why did it break down?" "Because the problem has nothing to do with her work," said the expert, pointing to a specific part. "The defect is in the alternator, which is an electrical component, not a mechanical one, and from the signs of deterioration, I can say this alternator has been having problems for at least 6 months. Dave Richards turned red with embarrassment. But the car stopped working right after she worked on it." "Coincidence," said Professor Hamilton. "It happens often. The alternator was at its limit, and any additional vibration during the clutch work may have been enough for it to fail completely." "So it's not my fault?" asked Emily, relieved. "None at all. In fact," Professor Hamilton smiled, "I want to talk to you about something. May we?" They stepped away from the group. "Emily, in 40 years in this profession, I have rarely seen someone work with such care and precision, and I have never seen someone so young with such technical knowledge." "Thank you, Professor. It's not a compliment, it's a professional observation. Where do you plan to study?" "Study? Mechanical engineering. With your talent, you should be preparing for one of the best colleges in the country." Emily sighed. "I don't have the financial means, and I need to work to help my mother." "I understand. But you should know there's a scholarship program for talented young people in the technical field. If you're interested, I can recommend you. Really, absolutely serious, but you would need to dedicate yourself fully to your studies for at least 2 years." "And how would I support my family?" "The program offers a full scholarship plus housing and meal assistance." Emily felt like she had won the lottery, but at the same time, she was afraid. What if she couldn't keep up with the class level? What if they found out she didn't even have a complete high school education? "I need to think about it," she said. "Of course. But don't take too long. Applications close in a month." On the way back home, Edward noticed that Emily was thoughtful. "Are you worried about something?" "Edward, do you think I should study engineering?" "I think you should do what makes you happy. But I confess it would be a shame to see so much talent without the proper theoretical foundation." Everyone says that, but I learn by working. That's true, but imagine what you could create if you combined your natural intuition with advanced scientific knowledge. That conversation stirred something in Emily. She spent days thinking about Professor Hamilton's proposal. One morning, while working on a Mustang in Edward's garage, she found something that changed everything. She was checking the glove compartment when her fingers touched a paper hidden behind the lining. She carefully pulled it out and discovered a handwritten letter, yellowed with time. The letter was addressed to her. "My dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've inherited my passion for engines. I'm writing this letter when you're just 2 years old, but you already show signs of curiosity about the cars I fix. I want you to know that your future doesn't have to be limited by what people expect of you. Be brave, study hard, and never let anyone tell you that you can't do something just because you're a woman. I've left some special projects hidden for you. One day, when you're ready, I hope you can continue the work I couldn't finish. Always remember, knowledge is the only thing no one can take away from you. With all my love, Dad," Emily cried as she read the letter. It was as if Michael was speaking directly to her across time. That night, she made a decision. She would accept the scholarship. "Mom, I want to go back to school," she announced during dinner. "Emily, are you sure? Our budget is still tight. Professor Hamilton got me a full scholarship. I'm going to study mechanical engineering." "What about the clients, the car work?" "I'll continue during vacations and weekends. Edward said he'll help me organize a reduced schedule." Jennifer smiled for the first time in a long while. Your father would be proud. The next 2 years were the most challenging of Emily's life. She had to go back to high school to apply for college, facing once again the prejudices of classmates and teachers. "Look who's back," laughed Heather, who was still in the same class. The mechanic gave up on her dream and decided to become a real person. "I haven't given up on anything," Emily replied calmly. "I'm just preparing myself better." During the college entrance exam prep course, Emily excelled in math and science subjects, but faced difficulties in humanities, where her foundation was lacking. The writing teacher, Ms. Wilson, a 60-year-old woman with experience preparing students for college entrance exams, noticed Emily's effort. "Can I speak with you after class?" she asked one day. Emily grew tense, remembering her experience with Robert Thompson, but Ms. Wilson had a completely different energy. "Emily, I've seen that you struggle with writing, but your ideas are very good. You have a unique perspective on the world." "Thank you, teacher. I want to help you. We can have some extra sessions to work on your written expression. I know you have potential. You're not going to charge anything?" "Of course not. I'm a teacher because I believe in young people's potential, and I rarely see someone with as much determination as you." With Ms. Wilson's help, Emily significantly improved her communication skills. She learned to express in writing the complex ideas she had about mechanics. "Emily," said Ms. Wilson during one of the last classes, "may I give you some advice?" "Of course. Don't let people limit you. You have a rare gift, and the world needs people like you." "Sometimes I feel lost, teacher, like I don't know where I'm going." "That's normal, but remember, every experience you've had until today was preparation for something greater. Trust the process." On the day of the entrance exam, Emily was more nervous than she had ever been fixing any car. The physics and math tests were easy, but the essay was challenging. The theme was innovation and tradition in modern America. Emily wrote about how solutions from the past can inspire future innovations, using as an example the projects of her father that she had discovered. 3 months later, the results came out. Emily had placed third in the mechanical engineering program at the State University. Jennifer cried with emotion when she heard the news. "Honey, I'm so proud of you." "It's not over yet, Mom. Now comes the hardest part." The university was a completely new world. Emily was one of the few women in the program, and by far the youngest. Besides, she came from a socio-economic reality different from most of her classmates. "Did you guys see there's a girl in our program?" commented Brandon, a classmate and son of business owners. "I bet she won't even last a semester." "And I heard she works with cars," laughed Greg, another classmate. "She probably thinks engineering is just about knowing how to change oil." Emily heard the comments and remained silent. She knew she would have to prove her worth through results, not words. The first semester was brutal. The theoretical subjects required a mathematical foundation that she had to build from scratch. She studied until late, slept little, and on weekends still worked with cars to supplement the family income. The thermodynamics professor, Dr. Henry Wilson, a demanding man with a reputation for failing half the class, noticed Emily's effort. "Miss Anderson, may I speak with you?" "Yes, Professor. Your grades are average, but I see you try harder than any other student. Is something affecting your performance?" Emily hesitated to tell him about her work routine. "Professor, can I be honest?" "Of course. I work weekends to help my family. Sometimes I get too tired to study properly." "I understand. What kind of work?" "Automotive mechanics." Professor Henry looked at her with renewed interest. "Really? Where did you learn?" "On my own, studying old manuals." "Interesting. Would you mind staying after class to show me how you apply thermodynamic concepts in practice?" That day, Emily spent 2 hours explaining to Professor Henry how she identified engine problems through thermodynamic principles. She talked about heat transfer, combustion cycles, energy efficiency with a naturalness that impressed the professor. "Emily, you have an intuitive understanding that many engineers with 10 years of experience don't have," he said at the end. "But you need to develop the theoretical foundation to complement that intuition." "That's what I'm trying to do, Professor. I'll help you. How about some guided study sessions? No cost, of course. I believe in your potential." With Professor Henry's help, Emily began to understand the connection between theory and practice in a deeper way. Her grades improved drastically, but the problems weren't over. Dave Richards, unhappy that his initial complaint hadn't gotten anywhere, started a more aggressive smear campaign. "That girl is a fraud," he'd say to anyone who would listen. "If she was so good, why did she have to run off to study at college?" The comments reached the ears of other mechanics in town who felt threatened by Emily's success. "A 17-year-old girl can't be a better mechanic than men with decades of experience," Frank Miller grumbled at the bar. "There's something wrong with this story." "I think she's got some scheme going on," Chuck agreed. "Maybe Edward does the work and puts her name on it. Or maybe she only fixes simple cars and goes around boasting," Jason added. The gossip spread quickly through the small town. Within a few weeks, customers began canceling services, suspicious of Emily's real capabilities. "They're saying you're a fraud," Edward told her, worried. "That your successes are staged. How can I prove they're not?" "Maybe it's time for you to accept a public challenge." "What kind of challenge?" "A competition. You against experienced mechanics, solving real problems in front of everyone." The idea both scared and excited Emily at the same time. "Do you think anyone would agree?" "Leave it to me." Edward knew a lot of people in the automotive world. Within 2 weeks, he had organized an event he called the Mechanics Challenge. The competition would be simple. 3 cars with different problems, 3 mechanics competing, including Emily. Whoever fixed the most problems in the least time would win a $10,000 prize and public recognition. The other 2 competitors would be Frank Miller and Samuel Johnson, owner of the most expensive shop in the area. "Emily, are you sure you want to do this?" Jennifer Parker asked, concerned. "If you lose, they'll say it was just luck in the previous cases. And if I win, they'll have to admit I know what I'm doing. And if you tie?" "There won't be a tie, Mom. I'm going to win." The confidence in Emily's voice surprised Jennifer. Her shy daughter was turning into a determined and self-assured young woman. The event took place the following Sunday, in the yard of Samuel Johnson's shop. More than 50 people attended, including collectors, curious mechanics, and neighborhood residents. The 3 cars chosen were a Sprint with an electrical problem, a wagon with a cooling system defect, and a van with intermittent engine failures. "The rules are simple," explained Edward, who was chosen as the judge. "Each competitor will have 1 hour to diagnose and solve the problem for each car. The winner is whoever fixes the most cars in the least time." Frank Miller was confident. "Finally, we'll see if this girl really knows anything," he commented to Samuel. "Relax, Frank," Samuel replied. "She might have talent, but experience can't be improvised." Emily heard the comments and took a deep breath. She remembered her father's letter, and Ms. Wilson's advice about self-confidence. The first car was the Sprint. Emily approached calmly and asked to start the engine. She listened carefully for 2 minutes, then turned it off. "The problem isn't in the engine," she said. "It's in the electrical system. Probably a stripped wire causing an intermittent short circuit." Frank and Samuel exchanged glances. They had each spent 15 minutes examining the engine without reaching a conclusion. Emily opened the hood and went straight to the main wiring harness. In 5 minutes, she found exactly what she was looking for: a stripped wire that touched the metal frame when the car shook. "Problem solved," she said, starting the car, which ran perfectly. The crowd murmured, impressed. Frank Miller grew nervous. The second car, the wagon, had a radiator leak that was causing overheating. Emily quickly identified that the problem wasn't the radiator itself, but a faulty water pump creating excessive pressure in the system. "Impossible," murmured Samuel when she explained the diagnosis. "The water pump was replaced last week." "It was replaced but with a part unsuitable for this model," explained Emily. "The flow is wrong, which is why the pressure becomes unbalanced." She was right again. The third car, the van, had the most complex problem: intermittent failures that appeared randomly during driving. Frank and Samuel spent their entire shifts trying to reproduce the defect without success. When it was Emily's turn, she asked for a person to drive the car while she listened to the engine from outside. "The problem only appears under engine load," she said after a few minutes. "I need to simulate a hill." She asked them to accelerate the stationary car with the handbrake pulled. Immediately, the defect appeared. "Maladjusted carburetor," she diagnosed. "The mixture is too lean for high-demand situations." In 15 minutes, she had adjusted the carburetor and the problem disappeared completely. The audience erupted in applause. Emily had solved all 3 problems, while Frank and Samuel together couldn't solve even one. "The winner is Emily Anderson," announced Edward, handing over the envelope with the prize. Frank approached her with an unfriendly look. "Congratulations," he said dryly, "but this doesn't mean you know everything." "I never said I know everything," replied Emily diplomatically. "I'm still learning." "You'd better be, because the real world is different from this organized competition." Samuel, more mature, had a different reaction. "Emily, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Would you be interested in doing an internship at my shop? I'd pay well and you'd learn the business side of things." "Thank you for the offer, but I'm preparing to enter college." "I understand. If you change your mind, look me up." In the days following the event, Emily received several job offers. Her victory had impressed many people, but also created some enemies. Dave Richards, still resentful of the public embarrassment when his accusation was disproven, started a new campaign of defamation. "That competition was rigged," he said. "The cars had simple problems on purpose. Anyone could have solved them." "And how do you know that?" someone asked. "Because I know Edward. He set it all up to promote the girl." The accusations were serious and began to tarnish Emily's reputation again. Some customers cancelled services, suspicious. "Maybe we should respond legally," suggested Edward. "No," said Emily. "I'll respond the only way I know how, by proving my competence." "How?" "Accept any challenge that comes up. If someone doubts my ability, let them bring me any problem they want." The opportunity came sooner than expected. Thomas Blackwell, a businessman from Americana who had heard about Emily through Oliver, came to town with a Chevette 1989 that no shop in the Midwest could fix. "This car belonged to my father," explained Thomas. "He passed away last year and left it to me. It has sentimental value, but it has a problem no one can solve." "What's the problem?" asked Emily. "The engine runs well for about 20 minutes, then starts losing power until it dies completely. Let it cool for an hour and it runs normally again." Emily immediately recognized the symptoms. "How many shops have you taken it to?" 7. In Americana, St. Louis, even one in Chicago. I spent over $15,000 and nothing." "And what conclusion did they all reach?" "Each one said something different. They've already replaced the fuel pump, spark plugs, cables, distributor, carburetor. The car has more new parts than original ones." Emily smiled. It was exactly the kind of problem her father faced, multiple, poorly coordinated interventions creating secondary issues. May I examine it? Of course, but I want to watch everything. Thomas also called Frank and Samuel to observe the diagnosis. If Emily failed, they could definitively claim she was a fraud. I'll need to drive the car until the problem appears, said Emily. You're not old enough to drive, observed Frank. Then you drive and I'll ride as a passenger listening to the engine, she replied. For 25 minutes they drove around town while Emily paid attention to every sound, every vibration, every change in the engine's behavior. You can stop, she said when the engine began to fail. She opened the hood and quickly examined everything. Then she had an insight. The problem isn't any of the parts that were replaced, she said. What do you mean? Asked Thomas. The problem is that you replaced so many parts that you completely changed the engine's thermal behavior. The new parts dissipate heat differently from the original ones. The result is that some parts get hotter than they should. And that causes what? Excessive expansion. Some parts expand so much that they start interfering with each other. That's why it works when cold and fails when hot. Can you fix it? I can, but I need to redo the entire thermal balancing. It will take a few days. How much will it cost? $2,000. Thomas laughed. Young lady, if you solve a problem that 7 shops couldn't fix, it's worth much more than $2,000. Emily worked for an entire week on the Chevette, applying concepts she had learned from her father's projects on thermal management in engines. She calculated the heat dissipation of each component, adjusted clearances, modified ventilation points. When she finished, the car ran perfectly for over 2 hours straight, without any sign of failure. Unbelievable, said Thomas, checking the performance. How did you know what the problem was? Experience and study, Emily replied simply. Experience? You're 17. Sometimes experience isn't about age, but dedication. Thomas was so impressed that he decided to stay in town a few more days to learn more about Emily's work. May I see those projects of your father that you mentioned? He asked. Emily took Thomas to her house. Jennifer was nervous receiving an important businessman in her simple home, but Thomas was extremely polite and respectful. Jennifer, your daughter is an exceptional talent, he said. And from the projects I saw, Michael was too. You have a treasure in your hands. A treasure? These projects that Michael developed are decades ahead of what the industry offers today. If implemented, they could revolutionize domestic engine production. But they're just old drawings, said Jennifer. No, they're brilliant solutions to problems the industry still faces. Emily felt a strange emotion. For the first time, she truly understood the magnitude of the legacy her father had left. Emily, may I make you a proposal? Continued Thomas. What proposal? Finish your degree. When you graduate, I'll fund a laboratory for you to develop your father's projects. If they work commercially, we split the profits. Are you serious? Completely serious. But there's one condition: you have to be the top student in your program. I need to be sure you have the necessary theoretical foundation. Emily looked at Jennifer, who was speechless. Can I think about it? Of course, but if you accept, I'll be watching your grades closely. That night, Emily couldn't sleep. Thomas's proposal was a dream she didn't even know she had, but at the same time, it meant enormous pressure to always be the best. Mom, what do you think? Honey, I always wanted you to have opportunities I never had. If this is what you want, I support you. But what if I can't do it? What if I'm not good enough? Emily, you've solved problems that mechanics with 30 years of experience couldn't handle. If that isn't being good enough, I don't know what is. In the second semester of college, Emily was unrecognizable. The shy and insecure girl had transformed into a determined and focused young woman. Her grades rose to the top of the class, and she began to stand out in practical projects. The professor of internal combustion engines, Professor Richard Ferguson, was impressed with a paper she presented on energy efficiency. Miss Anderson, where did you find this information on thermal management? He asked after the presentation. They're my own ideas, Professor, based on studies my father did. Was your father an engineer? He was a mechanic, but he developed some very advanced theories. May I see these studies? Emily hesitated. Her father's projects were her most precious treasure. "Professor, with all due respect, I prefer to keep the projects within the family for now. I understand, but know that ideas like these have the potential to change the entire industry. That's what I hope to do when I graduate." During the mid-year break, Emily intensified her work with cars to save money for her second year of college. Thomas kept in regular contact, always interested in her academic progress. "How are your grades?" he asked every month. "Among the top 3 in the class," Emily replied proudly. "Still not the best. I'm working on that." The pressure to be number 1 was intense, but also motivating. Emily studied with an almost obsessive determination, always remembering the opportunity Thomas had offered. At the end of the first year, she had achieved first place in the course. "Emily, congratulations," said Professor Henry during the first-year graduation. "Best student in the course and the youngest we've ever graduated. Thank you, Professor, for your support and confidence." "No, thank you. You reminded me why I chose to be a teacher." The break between the first and second year was different. Thomas kept his promise and offered Emily a paid internship at his company in Americana. "I want you to see how the real automotive industry works," he said. "Not just small shops, but large-scale production." The experience in Americana opened Emily's eyes to possibilities she had never imagined. She saw how cars were designed, how production lines worked, how technical decisions were made. "The American industry is at least 10 years behind other countries," explained Brian Shores, the chief engineer at Thomas's company. "We still use technologies that Europe and Japan abandoned long ago." "Why?" "Costs, mainly. Innovating is expensive and risky." "What if there was a way to innovate without increasing costs too much? It would be revolutionary. Do you have an idea?" Emily thought of her father's projects. All the solutions Michael had proposed were elegant precisely because they used available resources more intelligently, not because they required expensive technology. "Perhaps," she said, "I need to study more." When she returned to college in her second year, Emily was transformed. The experience in the industry had given her a practical vision that perfectly complemented her theoretical knowledge. Her classmates noticed the change. "Emily is different," commented Brandon, the same one who had doubted her before. "More confident. And she knows much more than any of us," added Greg, now with admiration. The third semester brought more advanced subjects: fluid dynamics, strength of materials, heat transfer, areas where Emily could directly apply the practical knowledge she had acquired. During a heat transfer class, the professor proposed a complex exercise on thermal dissipation in engines. "Whoever can solve this problem gets 5 extra points on the final exam," he said. It was exactly the kind of problem Emily had faced dozens of times in practice. She solved it in 10 minutes, while her classmates were still trying to understand the question. "Miss Anderson, could you explain your solution to the class?" asked the professor. Emily went to the board and explained step by step how she had arrived at the answer. She used practical examples, compared it to real situations, and made the complex concept understandable for everyone. "Excellent explanation," said the professor. "Where did you learn to make these practical correlations?" "Working with real cars, Professor." "Interesting. Do you plan to pursue an academic or industrial career?" "Industrial. I want to apply knowledge to solve real problems." "Commendable. The United States needs more engineers with that mindset." At the end of the third semester, Emily received an unexpected offer. The course coordination wanted to recommend her for an exchange program with a German university specializing in automotive engineering. "It's a unique opportunity," explained Professor Henry. 6 months studying with the best in the world. "But I would have to stop my work here." "Emily, knowledge is never a waste of time. You would come back even better." "And the costs?" "Everything paid for by the German university. They are interested in young talents from emerging countries." Emily was torn. On one hand, it was an incredible opportunity. On the other, it meant being away from her mother, stopping her income and putting her father's projects on the back burner. "I need to think." "Of course, but the answer must be by Friday." That night, Emily talked at length with Jennifer. "Mum, what do you think?" "Sweetheart, I've always dreamed of seeing you study abroad, but I know you worry about me." "I do worry. and I worry about Dad's projects. If I leave, who will continue developing them? The projects won't disappear, and you'll come back better prepared to work on them. Are you sure? I am. Your father always said knowledge is an investment, not an expense. But I'll miss you. I'll miss you too. But 6 months will pass quickly. On Friday, Emily announced her decision. She would accept the exchange. The news spread quickly through the town. Some reacted with pride, others with skepticism. "The girl is going to study in Germany," commented Mrs. Mary, Jennifer's neighbor. "Who would have thought a cleaner's daughter would go so far?" "She must think she's so much better than us now," grumbled Frank at the bar. "She'll see over there that she's not so special after all." Edward organized a small farewell party for Emily. All the customers she had served came, along with college classmates and neighbors. "Emily," said Oliver during a toast, "you taught us that talent has no age or gender. Thank you for that. And you showed us that the dreams of the past can become reality in the present," added Edward, referring to Michael's projects. The night before the trip, Emily went up to the attic again. She wanted to take some of her father's projects to study in Germany. That's when she found one last box she had never opened. Inside, she discovered letters Michael had received from engineers and business people from other countries, interested in his innovations. One letter in particular caught her attention. It was from Hans Miller, a German engineer from Maverick Motors, dated 1989. "Dear Michael, your ideas about thermal efficiency are brilliant. I would very much like to discuss them in person. We have some projects here in Germany that could greatly benefit from your innovative approach. When you can come to Europe, please contact us. Sincerely, Hans Miller, Engine Development Department, Maverick Motors." Emily held the letter in her hand for several minutes, processing the information. Your father had impressed engineers from Maverick Motors with his designs. "Mom," she shouted, running down the stairs. "What is it, dear?" "Look at this." She showed the letter. Dad was in contact with Maverick Motors. Jennifer read the letter twice before she could speak. "He never told me about this. Maybe he wanted to wait to see if it would work out. Or maybe he didn't want to give me false hope." "Mom, this changes everything. If Maverick was interested in Dad's designs over 30 years ago, imagine the interest they would have today." "Emily, don't get your hopes up. That was a long time ago. But the ideas are still valid. In fact, with today's technology, it would be much easier to implement them." Emily decided to take the letter to Germany. Who knows, maybe she could locate Hans Miller or someone who knew him. The trip to Germany was the first time Emily had left the United States. Everything was new and intimidating. The language, the culture, the way of working. Munich Technical University was impressive. Laboratories equipped with cutting-edge technology, world-renowned professors, brilliant colleagues from various countries. "You're from the United States?" asked Kyle, a German colleague. "How interesting. I've never met anyone from your country." "It's my first time outside the United States, too," admitted Emily. "And what's your area of interest?" "Internal combustion engines, specifically thermal efficiency." "Oh, you should meet Professor Miller. He's an expert in that." Emily felt her heart race. Could it be the same Hans Miller from the letter? Professor Miller. Hans Miller. He's a bit strict but very competent. The next day, Emily looked for Hans Miller's office. He was a man of about 70 with white hair and reading glasses who received her with formal German politeness. "How can I help you?" "Professor, my name is Emily Anderson. I'm from the United States and—" "Anderson?" he interrupted, taking off his glasses. "What a coincidence. I met an American with that last name many years ago." "Michael Anderson?" Hans Miller stood still for a few seconds. "How do you know Michael Anderson?" "He was my father." "Your father?" Hans rose from his chair. "Mein Gott. Michael had a daughter?" "Yes. And I found the letter you sent him in 1989. "You brought the letter?" Emily took the yellowed paper from her bag. Hans examined it with emotion. "I remember this letter perfectly. Michael had sent me some designs that impressed me very much." "Did you ever work with him?" "Unfortunately, no. We were organizing a partnership when—" when I learned that he had passed away. It was a great loss for engineering worldwide. Do you really think his designs were that important? Emily, your father was at least 15 years ahead of what anyone was doing at the time. If those designs had been developed, today we would have much more efficient engines. I brought some of the original designs. You brought them? Hans became visibly excited. May I see? Emily opened her folder and showed copies of some of the most important drawings Michael had left behind. Hans studied the papers with growing attention. The more he saw, the more impressed he became. This is extraordinary, he murmured. Some of these solutions are exactly what our industry is looking for today. Really? Absolutely serious. Emily, do you have any idea of the value of these designs? Not really. With today's technology, it would be possible to implement these ideas and produce engines 50% more efficient than current standards. Emily felt as if she were dreaming. Professor, may I ask you a personal question? Of course. Why did my father never manage to realize these designs? Hans sighed. Your question is more complex than you imagine. In the 80s and 90s, the automotive industry was very conservative. Innovations were seen as unnecessary risks. Besides, implementing new ideas required investments that few companies were willing to make. And today? Today is different. There's worldwide pressure for energy efficiency, emission reduction, sustainability. Your father's ideas are no longer risky innovations, they're urgent necessities. What are you suggesting? That you consider developing these projects as your graduation thesis? I would personally advise you. But I'm only in my second year. It doesn't matter. We can establish a special schedule. If you manage to demonstrate that these theories work in practice, you'll have a thesis that any company in the world would want to patent. Emily returned to the United States with her head buzzing with ideas. The experience in Germany had opened horizons she didn't even know existed. How was it? Asked Jennifer anxiously. Mom, it was incredible. And I discovered something important about Daddy. What? He really was a genius. His projects are even more valuable than we imagined. Emily told everything about the meeting with Hans Miller and the proposal to develop a thesis based on her father's projects. Does that mean you'll have to study longer? Asked Jennifer. It means that maybe I can fulfill Daddy's dreams. And your dreams? They're the same, Mum. They always were. Back at college, Emily went to the course coordination to propose the special thesis project. It's an ambitious proposal, said Professor Henry after analyzing the documentation. But you have academic support. Professor Miller is a world reference. So can I start? You can. But you'll need a proper laboratory for the practical tests. Thomas, true to his promise, financed the setup of an experimental laboratory at the university itself. It was a significant investment, but he believed in the potential of the projects. During the following 2 years, Emily divided her time between the regular course subjects and the development of the thesis. It was an exhausting routine, but extremely rewarding. She built prototypes of the engines designed by Michael, tested each theory, proved each calculation. Gradually, she realized that her father had anticipated solutions that the world industry was only discovering now. The results are impressive, said Professor Henry after seeing the first tests. 35% more efficient than conventional engines. And is that commercially viable? Mon asked Emily. Very viable. The production costs would be similar, but the performance much superior. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The news of Emily's experimental results reached the ears of several companies. National and international automakers began to show interest in her studies. Emily, we've received 3 proposals from companies wanting to patent your research, informed Thomas during a meeting. What kind of proposals? Complete purchase of the rights for amounts between $500,000 and $1 million. Emily almost fainted. She had never imagined that her father's projects could be worth so much money. What do you think I should do? It depends on what you want for your future, replied Thomas. If you sell now, you become rich but lose control over the innovations. If you keep the rights, You can earn much more in the long run, but you take on the risks of development. I need to talk to my mother. Jennifer was shocked when she learned about the amounts involved. $1 million? She repeated several times. Emily, that's more money than I'll earn in my entire life. That's why I'm confused, Mum. If I accept, we'll never have financial problems again. But you don't seem excited. It's just, if I sell Daddy's projects, I feel like I'm betraying his memory. Why would it be betraying him? Because he left this for me to develop, not for me to sell. Jennifer reflected before answering. Honey, your father wanted you to be happy and independent. If selling the projects gives you that, he would be happy. But what if I can develop everything on my own? Imagine the impact it would make. And what if you can't? What if it's too complex? Then at least I tried. And what if you need more money than we have to invest? Emily had no answer for that question. The decision became even more complicated when a different proposal arrived. A German company, through Hans Miller, offered a partnership. They would fully finance the development of the projects, and Emily would retain 40% of the rights to any product commercialized. It's the best offer, Thomas said. You keep control over the project, gain international experience, and still get a significant share of the profits. But I would have to live in Germany. For a few years, yes, until the development is complete. And my mother? She could go too if she wanted. Emily talked with Jennifer about the possibility of moving to Germany. Honey, I don't speak German. I don't know anyone there. It would be very hard for me. Then I won't go. Emily, don't sacrifice your future for my sake. Mom, family is more important than career. It's not a sacrifice if it's a conscious choice, but it is a sacrifice if it's out of obligation. What do you mean? If you stay in the United States because you want to, that's perfect. If you stay just because of me, you'll end up blaming me in the future. I would never do that. Yes, you would, even without realizing it. And I couldn't bear being the reason you don't achieve your dreams. The conversation lasted all night. In the end, they reached an agreement. Emily would go to Germany for 2 years to develop the projects, and Jennifer would visit every 6 months. But there's one condition, Jennifer said. What? If at any point you're not happy there, you come back immediately, no matter what's at stake. I promise. The preparation for the move was intense. Emily had to speed up some college courses to transfer the credits, organize all the documentation for her father's projects, and say goodbye to all her clients and friends. The hardest part was saying goodbye to Edward. Emily, you changed my life, he said emotionally. When I met you, I was just a lonely collector. Now I feel like I've been part of something historic. You changed mine too, Edward. If it weren't for your initial trust, I never would have gotten this far. Your father would be proud. I hope so. The most emotional goodbye was with Ms. Wilson, the teacher who had helped Emily with her writing. Emily, I have something to give you, she said, handing over an old book. What is it? Diary of a German engineer from the 1960s. She faced a lot of prejudice in her profession. I think you might relate to her story. Thank you, teacher, for everything. No, thank you. You taught me that we should never underestimate young people. At the airport, Jennifer tried to keep her composure, but she was visibly emotional. Promise you'll call every week? I promise, Mom, and eat properly. Don't just study and forget to eat. I promise that too. And if anyone treats you badly for being American or for being a woman, you tell me. I'll tell you everything. And Emily, what is it, Mom? I love you very much. And I'm proud of the woman you've become. The arrival in Germany was less traumatic than Emily expected. Hans Miller personally welcomed her at the airport and took her to see the lab where she would work. Impressive, she murmured upon seeing the equipment. Wait until you meet the team, Hans said. The lab had 5 senior engineers, all men between 40 and 60 years old, with decades of experience in the automotive industry. Everyone, I'd like to introduce Emily Anderson from the United States, said Hans. She will lead the high-efficiency engine project. The engineer's expressions shifted from surprise to skepticism in seconds. She will lead? Asked Frank, the oldest in the group. Wouldn't it be more appropriate for her to observe first, to learn how we work? Frank, Emily knows these projects better than any of us, Hans replied diplomatically. With all due respect, Hans, but she must be, 20 years old. How can she lead a project of this magnitude? Let her show what she's capable of. The first months were difficult. The German team questioned every decision Emily made, always suggesting more traditional ways of doing things. Emily, this approach is very unconventional, Werner said during a meeting. Wouldn't it be better to follow established protocols? The established protocols aren't working, Emily replied patiently. That's why we're creating something new. But the risk... Professor Miller approved the project. If there's risk, he's already considered it. The tension in the lab was palpable. Emily noticed that some team members were hoping she would fail, but she persisted. She worked more hours than anyone, studied late into the night, applied every concept from her father's projects with scientific precision. 3 months after work began, the first prototype was ready for testing. Emily, are you sure this engine will work? Asked Hans on the eve of the tests. I am, Professor. I tested each component individually. The theory is solid. And if it doesn't work? Then we'll understand why and fix it. But the company has invested a lot of money in this project. Professor, my father dedicated years of his life to these projects. I've dedicated the last 5 years studying every detail. If it doesn't work, it's not for lack of dedication. Test day arrived. Company executives, university professors, even specialized journalists came to see the results. Emily started the prototype with steady hands but a racing heart. The engine worked perfectly. Not only did it work, it exceeded all expectations. 48% more efficient than conventional engines, 60% lower emissions, projected durability 30% higher. The silence in the lab was broken by spontaneous applause. Mein Gott, murmured Frank, the most skeptical engineer. This is revolutionary. Emily, said Hans with paternal pride, you've just changed the future of the automotive industry. In the following days, the news spread throughout the European industry. Specialized newspapers published articles about the young American engineer who revolutionized engines. Emily received dozens of job offers, partnership proposals, invitations to speak at prestigious universities. But she could only think of one thing, telling Jennifer. Mom, we did it, she said during a video call, crying with emotion. Honey, I saw the news online. I can't believe it's you. Yes, you can, Mom. Daddy's projects worked. And now, what will happen? Now we'll license the technology to several companies. The royalties will be enough to support us for the rest of our lives. And you? Will you stay there in Germany? I haven't decided yet. I've received several offers, but what? But I miss home. I miss you. I miss my friends. Emily, you've just conquered the world. You can't come back now. Why can't I? Because here you'll always be remembered as the girl the mechanics humiliated. Out there you're respected. Mom, maybe that's exactly why I should come back. To show that it's possible to overcome any prejudice. Jennifer fell silent, processing her daughter's words. Are you sure about this? I am. I want to return to the United States and establish an automotive development center here. Can you imagine how many talented young people are out there without opportunity? How would you do that? With the royalty money. I'd set up a company that gave opportunities to people like me, talented but without the means to study abroad. And you'd give up all the international fame? Mum, fame without purpose means nothing. I want to use what I've learned to transform other people's reality. 2 weeks later, Emily communicated her decision to Hans Miller. Are you sure you want to return to the United States? He asked. We have very advantageous offers here. I'm sure, Professor. My place is in the United States. I understand, but know that the doors here will always be open for you. Thank you for everything, Professor. You fulfilled my father's dream. No, Emily, you fulfilled it. I merely provided the tools. The return to the United States was triumphant. National newspapers published stories about the prodigy engineer who conquered Germany. Emily was invited to give lectures, appear on TV shows, write articles. But what moved her most was the reception in her hometown. The mayor, Mrs. Cameron, organized a welcome ceremony in the central square. "Emily Anderson is a pride for our town," she said during her speech, "proof that talent and determination overcome any obstacle." Among the audience, Emily saw familiar faces. Edward was in the front row, beaming with pride. Ms. Wilson waved enthusiastically. Professor Hamilton, who had come especially for the event, smiled approvingly. And in the back, trying to go unnoticed, was Frank. After the ceremony, he approached Emily. "Congratulations on your success," he said, clearly uncomfortable. "Thank you, Frank." "Emily, he stammered, searching for words. "I think I owe you an apology." "You owe me nothing." "Yes, I do. I treated you poorly when you were a child, and when you were just starting out. It was prejudice on my part." "Frank, that's in the past." "It's not in the past for me. I keep thinking about how many talents I may have ignored throughout my life by thinking I knew who could or couldn't work with cars." Emily saw sincerity in his eyes. "We all make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from them. Can I ask you a question?" "Of course." Would you give me a chance to work for you?" Emily was surprised by the request. "What do you mean?" "I heard you're going to set up a company. You need experienced mechanics. I have 40 years in the profession. I know I was wrong about you, but I can contribute." "Frank, You don't have to answer now. Just think about the possibility. I promise it would be different." That night, Emily talked with Jennifer about the conversation with Frank. "Would you give him a chance?" asked Jennifer. "Honestly, I don't know. Part of me still holds a grudge for the way he treated me." "And the other part?" "The other part understands that everyone deserves a second chance." "What advice would your father give?" Emily thought about the letter Michael had left. "Be courageous," he had written. "I think he would tell me to be brave enough to forgive." Then you already know the answer. In the following months, Emily worked intensely on creating her company. With the royalty money, she set up an automotive research and development center in her hometown. The company was called Michael Anderson Innovations, in honor of her father. "I want to create something different," she explained to the first employees. "A place where talent is more important than diplomas, where experience is valued regardless of age or gender." The first hire was Ms. Wilson, now retired from the school, to handle the company's communication and public relations. "Emily, I never thought I'd work for a car company," she said, laughing. "Teacher, you'll be working with people, not cars, and people are your specialty." The second hire was Frank. "Emily, I promise you won't regret it," he said on his first day of work. "Frank, the past is in the past. What matters now is the future we'll build together. You can count on me." Within a few months, the company was fully operational. Emily had created a trainee program for low-income youth interested in automotive mechanics. "I want to give opportunities I never had," she explained to a local TV news report. The program was a success. Dozens of young people applied, including several girls inspired by Emily's story. One of them was Carly Peterson, 16 years old, daughter of a farmer from the rural area. "Emily, I've always liked machines, but my father says it's not for women," Carly shared during the interview. "And what do you think?" "That if you made it, I can try too." "It's not about making it, Carly, it's about wanting to. If you really want it, you'll make it." Carly was accepted into the program and quickly stood out. She had the same determined look that Emily had at her age. "She reminds me of someone," Frank commented one day, watching Carly work. "Who?" asked Emily. "You, 15 years ago. The same drive, the same will to prove she can do it. I hope she doesn't have to face the humiliations I faced." "She won't, because now there's a place where talent is respected." 1 year after the company opened, Emily received an unexpected visit. It was Dave Richards, the man who had tried to sue her years before. "Emily, can I talk to you?" "Of course, Dave, come in. I came to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For doubting you, for trying to harm you when you were just starting out." "Dave, that was a long time ago. Maybe for you, not for me. I keep thinking about how foolish I was. You were trying to help me, and I only thought about making trouble. Why are you telling me this now? Because my grandson is 15 and wants to be a mechanic. When I told him about you, he said I was unfair, that I should have given you a chance. Your grandson is right. Emily, would you give him an opportunity in your program? Emily smiled. The circle was closing. Of course. Bring him here tomorrow so we can talk. Thank you, really. By the end of the second year of operation, Emily's company had become a national reference in automotive innovation. They had developed 3 new technologies based on Michael's designs, all licensed to American automakers. The result was impressive. Domestic cars with performance comparable to imports but at a much lower cost. Emily, you achieved in 5 years what the American industry had been trying to do for decades, said Thomas during a review meeting. It wasn't just me, it was the whole team. Leadership is knowing how to recognize others' merits, another quality you've developed. I learned by watching people like you and Edward. And now? What are the next steps? Expand the trainee program, open branches in other cities, democratize access to automotive knowledge, grand ambitions. My father always said small dreams don't inspire anyone. The company's 2nd anniversary celebration was held in the town's central square. Jennifer had insisted it be a public event, so the whole community could participate. Emily, said Jennifer during the main speech, when you were little, I was afraid your dreams were too big for our reality. Today I understand that our reality was too small for your dreams. The audience applauded emotionally. Emily looked at the crowd and saw faces that had followed her journey from the beginning. Edward was there, now a minority partner in the company. Ms. Wilson in charge of communications. Professor Hamilton, who had become a technical consultant. Frank Miller, who had become the most dedicated production manager she had ever known. And in the middle of the crowd, dozens of young people who participated in the company's training programs. I want to tell you all a story, said Emily into the microphone. The story of a 4-year-old girl who was thrown out of a repair shop for wanting to fix a car. The audience laughed, remembering the episode. That little girl didn't know she was starting a journey that would take her far beyond what she ever dreamed. And do you know why this journey was possible? Total silence. Because some people believed in her when she didn't even believe in herself. Because a mother worked 3 jobs to support her daughter's dream. Because teachers dedicated extra time to teach someone who wanted to learn. Because a car collector gave her the first real opportunity. Jennifer wiped away a discreet tear. Today, our company directly employs 45 people and contributes to the livelihood of over 200 families indirectly. It's not just a company, it's a community. And this is just the beginning, Emily continued. Next year we will open our first branch in Chicago. In 3 years we want to be present in 10 American states. The applause was deafening. After the party, when everyone had left, Emily and Jennifer walked to the town cemetery. I think Daddy would be proud, said Emily, kneeling before Michael's simple headstone. He would be very proud, Jennifer agreed. You not only fulfilled his dreams, but you created your own. Mum, can I confess something? Of course. Sometimes I'm afraid that all of this is just luck, that one day they'll discover that I'm not as good as they think. Emily, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. You've been preparing your whole life for this moment. You think so? I'm sure. Every humiliation you faced made you stronger. Every no you heard motivated you to prove otherwise. Every obstacle taught you to find creative solutions. And now that there are no more obstacles, now you become a bridge for others to overcome their obstacles. In the company's 3rd year, Emily faced her biggest challenge yet. An international automaker had contested one of her patents, claiming the technology was similar to something they had developed independently. It's a serious accusation, explained the company's lawyer, Dr. Paul. If we lose, it could jeopardize the entire project. But our technology is based on my father's designs, from over 30 years ago. The problem is proving that legally. We need documentation that proves the concept's priority. Emily went back to the attic of the house she grew up in, now searching for any document that could help with the legal case. That's when she found a box that had gone unnoticed in all previous searches. Inside, she discovered correspondence between Michael and engineers from various countries, dated from the 80s. More importantly, she found a patent application that Michael had tried to file in 1987, but which was not approved due to a lack of commercial viability. "Mom, look at this," she shouted, running down the stairs. "What is it now?" "Daddy tried to patent these ideas over 30 years ago. We have proof of priority." "Does that solve the problem?" "Completely. His patent predates anything they can claim." The legal case was quickly resolved in Emily's favor. More than that, the discovery of Michael's patent attempt historically validated the importance of his designs. "Emily, your father was truly decades ahead of his time," said Hans Miller during a video conference. "This document proves that he anticipated developments that are only now being understood by the industry." "Professor, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you think my father knew the importance of what he was creating?" "I think he did, yes. And I also think he knew he wouldn't live to see these ideas implemented." "Why do you say that?" "Because people with that level of vision usually realize they're working for the future, not for the present. So he really left all this to me?" "He left it to you and to the world. You were just the one responsible for bridging the two." With the legal issue resolved, Emily could focus on expanding the company. The Chicago branch was opened in the 4th year, followed by units in Philadelphia, Portland, and Denver. Each new branch followed the same model: hiring based on talent, training programs for low-income youth, partnerships with local universities. "We're creating a movement," said Emily during a meeting with all branch managers. "It's not just a company, it's a cultural shift." "What kind of shift?" asked Michelle, manager of the Denver branch. "The shift to believing that talent can come from anywhere, that experience matters more than appearance. That innovation is born from necessity, not privilege." The company's success brought international recognition. Emily was invited to speak at European universities, participate in world congresses of automotive engineering, write articles for the top technical magazines on the planet. But she always came back home. She always kept her feet on the ground where she had grown up. "Why don't you move to Chicago or Miami?" people from outside would ask. "Your company would be closer to the major centers." "Because my story started here," Emily would answer, "and here is where it makes the most sense." In the company's 5th year, an offer arrived that would test all the principles Emily had established. An American multinational offered $2 billion for the complete purchase of the company and all its technologies. "It's an obscene offer," said Thomas, still a partner and advisor. "You would be among the richest women in the United States, and I would lose control over everything I built." "Emily, with that money, you could do anything you wanted." "Thomas, I already do anything I want. I have a prosperous company. I employ people who believe in what we do. I develop technologies that improve people's lives. What more could I want? Financial security for the rest of your life. I already have financial security, and more importantly, I have purpose. And if the company can't sustain itself in the long run, then we'll learn from our mistakes and try again." Emily refused the American offer. The news caused a stir in the specialized media. "Businesswoman refuses $2 billion to maintain control of national innovations" was the headline of the country's main economic newspaper. Some criticized the decision as lack of business vision. Others praised it as corporate patriotism. "Emily, aren't you regretting it?" a journalist asked during an interview. "Regretting what?" she answered with a smile. "Keeping my father's legacy alive, giving opportunities to talented young people, proving that the United States can innovate as much as any country in the world. But $2 billion, they're just numbers. What I'm building here is priceless." Refusing the American proposal had an unexpected consequence. It further increased international interest in the company's technologies. European and Asian automakers began seeking more advantageous partnerships. "Emily, we have 15 international licensing proposals," Michelle informed during a meeting. "How are these different from the American proposal?" "These keep our control over the technology. They pay royalties to use it, but they don't buy the rights. Much better. We can analyze them case by case. The company's growth brought new challenges." Emily needed to learn about people management, business strategy, international negotiations, areas completely different from the mechanics she had mastered. "Sometimes I feel like I'm swimming in very deep waters," she confessed to Jennifer during dinner. "Honey, you've always swum in deep waters. The difference is that now you know how to swim." "What do you mean?" "When you were 4 years old and wanted to fix cars, that was deep water. When you decided to study engineering on your own, that was deep water. When you went to Germany alone, that was deep water. You always found a way. But now the responsibilities are much greater. If I make a mistake, it doesn't just affect me. Emily, you've already proven you can make tough decisions. Trust your instinct." The conversation with her mother helped Emily regain her confidence. She decided to delegate more responsibilities to the team, focusing on areas where she truly added value. Frank, who had become a kind of operational right-hand man, surprised everyone with his dedication and loyalty. "Emily, I want to thank you for giving me this chance," he said during a company gathering. "Frank, you earned this position with your work." "No, you gave me the chance to redeem myself, to show that I can be better than I was in the past. We all deserve second chances." "Can I tell you something?" "Of course. Since I started working here, my relationship with my family has improved. My wife says I'm more humble, more respectful toward people." "That's wonderful, Frank. It's just that working with you taught me that competence has nothing to do with appearance or age. It taught me to listen before judging." Stories like Frank's repeated themselves throughout the company. People who had arrived skeptical about Emily's management model, but gradually transformed. Samuel Johnson, the owner of the competing auto shop, also underwent a transformation. After losing several customers to Emily's company, he decided to change his approach. "Emily, can I ask you for some advice?" he asked one day. "Of course, Samuel. How can I help?" "My auto shop is losing customers. Not because of the quality of service, but because customers feel more respected at your company." "And what is your question? How do I get my employees to treat customers better?" "Samuel, it's not about training employees. It's about creating a culture of respect." "What do you mean? Do you treat your employees with respect? Do you listen to their ideas? Do you acknowledge when they do good work?" Samuel became thoughtful. "Honestly, not really." "Then start there. Employees who feel respected respect the customers." "Is it that simple?" "It's not simple. It's basic. A huge difference." 6 months later, Samuel came back to thank her. His auto shop had significantly improved customer service and regained the lost clientele. "Thank you for the advice," he said. "It really works." "Samuel, can I make you a proposal?" "What proposal?" "How about we become partners instead of competitors? Your shop would handle basic maintenance, and we focus on special projects and innovations." "Partners? Why not? We have different but complementary goals." The partnership with Samuel was the first step toward a network of associated auto shops that Emily created throughout the state. Each shop maintained its independence, but shared knowledge and best practices. "It's a cooperative model," she explained to a group of interested business owners. "Everyone grows together instead of competing destructively." The model worked so well that it began to be replicated in other states. Within 2 years, the network had over 100 associated auto shops. During this period of rapid growth, Emily received news that would once again change her perspective on the past. Carly Peterson, the young woman who had joined the trainee program, made a surprising discovery while organizing the company's historical files. "Emily, I found something you need to see," she said, entering the office with an old folder. "What is it?" "Documents that were at the bottom of one of your father's boxes. I don't think you've ever seen these." Emily opened the folder and found letters that Michael had written but apparently never sent. They were drafts of correspondence to business people, universities, research institutions. One letter in particular moved her deeply. "Dear Emily, I know that by the time you read this I will no longer be here. I have an illness that the doctors say is incurable, but I don't want your mother to know. She already suffers enough. I'm racing against time to get all my projects in order. Not because I think they are brilliant, but because I believe that one day you will have the knowledge necessary to evaluate them properly. If you find them useful, use them. If you find them to be the nonsense of a dreamer mechanic, discard them without guilt. What I want most is for you to be happy and independent. If mechanics brings you happiness, move forward. If you choose another path, that will be fine too. Just don't accept anyone telling you that you can't do something. You can do anything you set your mind to. I love you more than words can express. Dad. Emily wept copiously upon reading the letter. It was as if Michael had written exactly what she needed to hear at that moment in her life. Carly, thank you for finding this. Emily, can I ask you something? Of course. How do you stay motivated when things get tough? I remember where I came from. I remember all the people who believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. And when you doubt yourself, then I look at people like you. If I can inspire someone to follow their dreams, it means I'm on the right path. Carly smiled. She had become the youngest mechanic in the company and showed the same natural talent that Emily had at her age. Emily, I want to study engineering too, said Carly. Great idea. The company can give you a scholarship. Really? Of course. That's what our Educational Development Fund is for. The scholarship program had been created by Emily so that talented employees could further their education without compromising their family income. It was an investment in the team that always paid back in the form of innovations and improvements. In the company's 6th year, Emily faced an unexpected personal crisis. Jennifer was diagnosed with a heart condition that required delicate surgery. Mom, we'll find the best doctors in the country, said Emily, desperate. Honey, it's not a matter of money, it's a matter of age. I'm 62, my heart is tired. Don't talk like that, you're going to be fine. And if I'm not? You will be, insisted Emily, refusing to consider any other possibility. The surgery was scheduled for the following week. Emily cancelled all professional commitments to be by her mother's side. Emily, you can't stop the company because of me, protested Jennifer. The company can wait. You are more important. No, I'm not. The company represents the dreams of many people. Mom, the company only exists because you raised me to dream big. While waiting for the surgery, Jennifer insisted on reviewing some pending matters. Emily, if anything happens to me, nothing is going to happen. If it does, insisted Jennifer, I want you to know that I am proud of everything you have achieved. Mom, stop it. And I want you to continue being generous. Keep giving opportunities to people in need. I will. And don't let success go to your head. Always remember where you came from. I promise. The surgery lasted 6 hours. Emily spent the entire time in the waiting room, receiving support from employees, friends, and clients who had become family over the years. Edward, now 80 years old, made a point of being present. Emily, your mother is a strong woman. Everything will be all right. Edward, if I lose her now, you won't lose her. And even if you did, Jennifer would continue to live on in everything you've built. When the doctor finally came out of the operating room, Emily ran to meet him. Doctor, how did it go? The surgery was successful, he said with a smile. Your mother is stronger than we imagined. Jennifer's recovery took 3 months. During this period, Emily realized how much she had neglected her personal life because of the company. Mom, when you're fully recovered, let's travel together. Travel where? Anywhere you want. Europe, the United States, or simply to the beach. Emily, you don't have to... Yes, I do. I need to spend time with you without talking about work, without thinking about engines, without solving problems. That would be wonderful. The trip happened 6 months later. Emily and Jennifer spent 2 weeks in Germany, visiting Hans Miller and touring the laboratories where Emily had worked. Professor, this is my mother, Jennifer, Emily introduced. Mrs. Parker, it's an honor to meet you, said Hans, politely kissing her hand. You've raised an exceptional daughter. Thank you, Professor. I've heard so much about you. I hope good things. Only good things. Emily always speaks of you very fondly. During the dinner Hans hosted at his home, Emily noticed how happy and relaxed Jennifer was. It had been a long time since she had seen her mother smile so much. Mom, are you enjoying the trip? Very much, dear. But do you know what I'm enjoying the most? What? seeing how respected you are here, how people speak of you with admiration. Is that important to you? It's important because it shows you chose the right path, that all the difficulties we went through were worth it. Back in the United States, Emily felt renewed. The break had been necessary for her to rethink priorities and reorganize her life. "I'm going to delegate more responsibilities," she announced to the management team. "I want to focus on what really matters, developing new technologies and training people." Michelle, who had become the executive director, took on much of the day-to-day operations. Carly, now a graduate in engineering with honors, led the research team. Frank coordinated all the practical and operational aspects. "Emily, you've built a company that functions without depending solely on you," observed Thomas. "That's the sign of truly mature leadership. I've learned that controlling everything is impossible. It's better to train competent people and trust them. Your father thought that way too. He always said a good leader is one who develops other leaders." In the company's 7th year, a challenge arrived that would test everything Emily had built. The federal government issued a call for proposals to develop a 100% American national engine that could equip popular vehicles. "It's exactly what we've been waiting for," said Carly, excited about the possibility. "But the competition will be tough," warned Michelle. "All the big companies in the country will participate." "And do we have any advantage?" asked Emily. "We have the most advanced technology in the country," replied Carly, "and a proven track record of innovations. But we don't have the size of the multinationals," considered Michelle. "They have more resources, more people, more experience with government bids." Emily thought about the obstacles she had faced her entire life. She had always been underestimated for being young, for being a woman, for coming from a humble family, but she had always found creative ways to overcome limitations. "Then let's use our main advantage," she said, "which is, we understand the American reality better than any multinational. We know exactly what the country needs." Preparing the proposal took 4 months. Emily mobilized the entire company to create the most ambitious project of her career, an engine that would be more efficient, cheaper, and easier to maintain than anything available on the domestic market. "We're betting everything on this project," said Thomas during a final review. "We're not betting," corrected Emily. "We're investing in the country's future." The day of the proposal presentations arrived in Americana. Emily was accompanied by Carly, Michelle, and to everyone's surprise, Jennifer. "Mother, you don't need to go. It's going to be very technical." "Daughter, I've followed every step of this journey. I won't miss the most important moment." In the presentation room, Emily saw representatives from the country's largest automakers. Men in expensive suits, huge teams, sophisticated presentations. "Emily, aren't you nervous?" asked Carly. "A little, but I remember what my mother always said. Preparation is the best way to fight nervousness." "And are we prepared?" "We are." Emily's presentation lasted exactly 20 minutes. She explained how the engine they had developed exceeded all the specifications in the request for proposals, demonstrated the economic feasibility with concrete data, and presented a realistic implementation timeline. "Miss Anderson," asked one of the evaluators, "how does your company, being relatively small, intend to produce engines on an industrial scale?" "Through strategic partnerships with the network of workshops we already have. Instead of building one giant factory, we'll create several smaller production units, generating jobs and income in different regions of the country." Interesting approach. And the quality issue. "All units will follow the same quality protocols we developed. We'll have technical auditors who will ensure standardization." "And the costs?" "They will be 20% lower than the competition because we eliminated several middlemen from the production chain." The evaluators looked at each other, impressed. They had never seen such a detailed and well-structured proposal. The result would be announced in a month. During that period, Emily tried to maintain a normal routine, but it was impossible not to think about the project. "What if we don't win?" asked Michelle. "Then we'll keep doing what we know how to do. Innovate and empower people," replied Emily. "But it would be a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity." Michelle, once-in-a-lifetime opportunities appear for those who are prepared. If it's not this time, it will be next time. "Do you really believe that?" I do. My whole life has been a series of once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that appeared because I was prepared. The result was announced at a ceremony at the White House. Emily, Jennifer, the entire company's main team, and even Edward were invited to the event. The winning project, announced the Secretary of Industry, was submitted by the company Michael Anderson Innovations from Pennsylvania. The emotion was indescribable. Jennifer cried openly. Emily hugged every team member. Edward, despite his age, raised his arms in celebration. "Emily," said the secretary during the certificate presentation, "you have just made history. This will be the first 100% domestic engine developed by an American company in decades. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, but I want to make it clear that this success isn't just mine. It's the result of the work of an incredible team and the vision of my father, Michael Anderson. Tell us about him." "My father was a mechanic who dreamed big. He believed that the United States had the capacity to innovate as much as any country in the world. This project is the realization of his dreams." Emily's speech was broadcast live on national television. In her hometown, bars and restaurants stopped to watch the ceremony. At Frank Miller's shop, which now went by the name Miller and Anderson Associates, all the employees watched, moved. "Our boss is on TV," said one of the younger mechanics. "She's not our boss," Frank corrected. "She's our leader, and that makes all the difference." The following months were filled with intense work to implement production of the new engine. Emily traveled across the country selecting and training the shops that would be part of the production network. In every city, the story repeated itself. Initial skepticism, followed by admiration when they saw the team's technical and human competence. How did a company from the countryside manage to win a national bidding process? People from Chicago would ask. "We didn't win because we're from the countryside," Emily would patiently reply. "We won because we had the best proposal." "But you don't have the structure of the big companies." "We don't have traditional structure. We have something better: flexibility, innovation, and personal commitment." 1 year after production began, the first cars equipped with Michael Anderson engines arrived at dealerships. The public response was enthusiastic. "Finally, an American car that doesn't fall short of imports," the specialized press commented. "The fuel efficiency is impressive," praised the first buyers. The commercial success exceeded all expectations. Within 6 months, there was a waiting list to buy cars with the engine developed by Emily's company. "Emily, we've received an offer from a Japanese automaker to license our technology," Michelle informed her during a meeting. "Japanese? They want to use our engines in cars for the Asian market." "How did they hear about our work?" "Through the results. The efficiency numbers reached them through technical publications." Emily smiled. The irony was delightful. A technology developed in the American heartland catching the attention of the Japanese industry, world-renowned for quality. "Let's evaluate the offer, but we'll only accept if they maintain our quality and social responsibility standards." "What do you mean?" "I want to ensure that the factories producing our engines overseas also offer good working conditions and growth opportunities for employees." "Emily, that could complicate negotiations." "Michelle, success without social responsibility isn't success. It's just profit." Negotiations with the Japanese company took 8 months, but resulted in an agreement that served as a model for future international partnerships. Emily managed to include clauses guaranteeing dignified working conditions and training programs in all licensed factories. "You're setting a new standard for international agreements," Thomas commented. "Other companies will have to follow your example." "I don't want to set standards. I just want to do what I believe is right." That's exactly what sets standards. In the company's 8th year, Emily received the recognition that moved her the most. She was nominated for the National Award for Technological Innovation. "It's the highest recognition an innovator can receive in the United States," explained the representative from the Academy of Sciences who approached her. "I'm very honored," said Emily, "but I'd like to share this award with my team." "The award is individual, but you can mention whomever you wish during your speech." The award ceremony was held at the Miami Performing Arts Center. The cream of the national and international scientific community was present. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emily said upon receiving the award, "this recognition isn't mine. It belongs to everyone who believed that the United States can innovate. She looked into the audience and saw Jennifer in the front row, beaming with pride. It belongs to my mother, Jennifer, who worked 3 jobs to support my dreams when they seemed impossible. This award belongs to Mr. Edward Williams, who gave me my first real opportunity when I was 15. It belongs to Ms. Wilson, who taught me that words have power. It belongs to Professor Hans Miller, who believed in my father's projects. The audience applauded emotionally. But most of all, continued Emily, this award belongs to Michael Anderson, my father, who died far too young but left a legacy that is transforming the lives of thousands of people. When she stepped off the stage, Emily was surrounded by journalists wanting interviews. "Emily, what is your next project?" asked one reporter. "Expanding our educational program across the country. We want any talented young person to have access to quality technical education, regardless of their social background." "And personally, do you plan to get married, have children?" Emily smiled. It was a question she had avoided thinking about for years, completely focused on her career. "Personally, I am open to whatever life brings, but my priority will always be to honor my father's legacy and give back the opportunities I received." 2 months after the award ceremony, Emily received a surprising phone call. "Hello, Emily. This is Daniel Carter." "Daniel Carter. I'm an automotive engineer. I work for an automaker in Chicago. I saw your interview after the award ceremony and would like to speak with you in person." "About what?" "About a collaboration proposal. And also, well, this will sound strange, but I think I knew your father." Emily felt her heart race. "You can come here whenever you want." Daniel arrived the following week. He was a 45-year-old man, elegant, with a gentle way of speaking. "Emily, thank you for seeing me." "Of course. You said you knew my father." "I knew him when I was young. I worked as an apprentice in a shop where Michael did special services. Tell me more." "I was 18 and just starting out in the business. Michael taught me more in 6 months than I learned in years of technical courses." "What was he like as a person?" "Generous, patient, brilliant. He treated everyone the same, from the shop owner to the janitor, and he talked about you a lot." "About me?" "He said he had a little daughter who was already showing an interest in engines, that one day she would be a great engineer." Emily was moved. "He really said that?" "He said it many times. Michael was certain you would follow in his footsteps." "And the proposal you mentioned?" "I want to leave the automaker where I work and come work with you. I've always dreamed of developing domestic technology." "Why leave a stable job?" "Because there I'm just another employee following orders. Here I could contribute to something truly important." Emily discussed hiring Daniel with her team. "He has an impeccable resume," said Michelle after reviewing his professional history. 15 years of experience in engine development. "And he knew your father," added Carly. "That could bring interesting perspectives on the original projects." Daniel was hired and quickly integrated into the team. His experience in industrial production perfectly complemented the theoretical and practical knowledge the company already had. More importantly, he brought stories about Michael that Emily had never heard. "Your father had a very interesting philosophy about innovation," Daniel shared during lunch. "He said the best technology is that which solves real problems for real people." "Did he apply that in practice?" "Always. I remember a customer who had an old Beetle but no money to buy a new car. Michael developed specific modifications that made that Beetle last another 15 years. "Did you keep in touch after he left the shop?" "We did for a few years. The last time we spoke, he was very excited about some new projects he was developing." "Did he mention what they were?" "Engines that could democratize transportation in the United States." Those were his exact words. Emily felt a strange emotion. It was as if the pieces of a puzzle were falling into place after decades. "Daniel, can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you remember what my father was like as a dad? Not as a professional, but as a father." Daniel smiled tenderly. "Michael talked about you all the time. He showed pictures, told stories about the mischief you got into. He loved you more than anything in the world, even though he had so little time with me." "Emily, quality matters more than quantity. In the 2 years you had with him, Michael instilled in you values that lasted a lifetime. How do you know that? Because you act exactly as he would. The way you treat people, how you value teamwork, how you care about the social impact of your decisions. It's Michael living through you. This conversation deeply marked Emily. She began to understand that her journey wasn't just about fulfilling her father's dreams, but about continuing to be the person he had started to shape. In the company's 9th year, the most important international recognition arrived. Emily was invited to speak at the World Congress of Automotive Engineering in Detroit. "It's the most important event in the field," explained Hans Miller during a video conference. "The world's greatest innovators participate." "Professor, I'm nervous. I've never spoken to such a specialized audience." "Emily, you have what none of them have, a real story of overcoming and innovation. Speak from the heart, not just about the technical aspects." The presentation was an absolute success. Emily told her story, from the 4-year-old girl kicked out of the workshop to the engineer who was revolutionizing the automotive industry. "Innovation doesn't come from privilege," she said in the fluent English she had learned in recent years. "It comes from necessity, determination, and the courage to challenge the status quo." The audience of over 2,000 engineers rose to their feet in applause. After the presentation, Emily was approached by dozens of professionals wanting to learn more about her technologies and methods. "Miss Anderson," said an American engineer, "we would love to have you working with us in Detroit." "Thank you, but my place is in the United States," she replied diplomatically. "May I ask why?" "Because that's where I can make the biggest difference." The response spread through the global specialized media. "American engineer chooses impact over profit," was the headline in an American magazine. Back in the United States, Emily found the company more prosperous than ever. International orders had tripled after her presentation in Detroit. "Emily, we have licensing requests from China, India, Mexico," informed Michelle. "The whole world wants our technology. And do we have the capacity to meet the demand? If we expand as planned, yes, then let's expand. But keeping our principles." "Which principles specifically?" "Social responsibility, technical quality, respect for people. Anywhere in the world where our technology is used." International expansion brought complex cultural challenges. Emily had to learn about labor laws in different countries, adapt technologies to specific local needs, and most importantly, ensure that the company's values were respected in cultures very different from the American one. "It's more complicated than I imagined," she confessed to Jennifer during a dinner. "What specifically?" "Maintaining the essence of what we built here when we expand into such different realities. My dear, the essence isn't in the way we do things, it's in the why we do them." "What do you mean?" "If the reason is always to help people realize their potential, the way will naturally adapt to each place. You always have the right answers. I don't have the right answers. I have life experience and a daughter who teaches me new things every day." In the company's 10th year, Emily decided to implement her most ambitious project, a free technical university specialized in automotive innovation. "I want to create a place where talented young people can study regardless of their financial situation," she explained to the company's board. "Emily, this will cost millions," Thomas warned. "We have the resources. And more importantly, we have a moral obligation." "Obligation?" "Thomas, everything I achieved was possible because people believed in my potential and gave me opportunities. Now it's my turn to do that for others. And if the investment doesn't bring financial return, the return won't be financial, it will be social, and that is much more valuable." The construction of the university took 2 years. The campus was installed in Emily's own hometown, transforming the local economy. "This town has completely changed since Emily returned from Germany," commented Mrs. Mary, Jennifer's former neighbor. "Changed for the better," agreed the mayor. "We have young people coming from all over the country to study here. It's a pride." The inauguration of the university was the most exciting moment of Emily's professional life. She had managed to transform her hometown into a reference center for technical education. "Mom, we did it," she said to Jennifer during the opening ceremony. "Daughter, your father would be—" "No, he is proud, wherever he is." The first class at the university had 120 students, selected through a process that evaluated talent and potential, not just grades or financial conditions. Among the students was Peter, a 17-year-old young man, son of fishermen from the coast, who had shown exceptional talent for naval mechanics. "Professor Emily," he said on the first day of class, "I want to thank you for the opportunity. Peter, you earned this spot on your own merit. But if you hadn't created this university, I would never have been able to study. Then make the most of it, and when you graduate, pass on the opportunities you are receiving. I promise." 3 years after the university opened, the first engineers graduated from the program began to enter the job market. All found jobs quickly, many in companies that previously only hired graduates from traditional universities. "Our students are changing the market," said Carly, who had taken over the university's presidency. "They arrive at companies with a different vision, more practical and humanized." "That's exactly what I expected," replied Emily. "And now? What's the next step?" "Now we will consolidate everything we've built and start training the next generation of leaders." "Are you thinking about retiring?" "Not retiring, but maybe it's time to pass the baton forward." "To whom?" "To you. Carly, Michelle, Daniel, all of you are ready to lead. But the company is your creation. Carly, the company is bigger than any individual, including me." Emily began gradually delegating more strategic responsibilities to the team. She wanted to make sure that the company could thrive, regardless of her daily presence. But an unexpected event would test the solidity of everything she had built. A journalistic investigation raised questions about the bidding processes that had given rise to the company's success. Some competitors who had lost contracts began to question whether Emily really had the technical competence for the projects she signed. "It's a smear campaign," said Michelle during a crisis meeting. "They're trying to tarnish your reputation because they can't compete technically." "What specifically are they alleging?" asked Emily. "That you are just the face of the company, but that the real technical work is done by others. That your story of overcoming is just marketing. And how do we respond to that?" "With facts," said Daniel. "By documenting every project you led, every innovation you developed." "No," said Emily after reflection. "We'll respond differently." "How?" "I'll accept a public challenge. Any company that questions our competence can propose a real technical problem. I'll solve it in front of anyone who wants to watch." "Emily, this is risky," warned Thomas. "If anything goes wrong, Thomas, my whole life has been about taking calculated risks. This is just one more." The challenge was accepted by 3 competing companies. Each proposed a different technical problem, developing a more efficient engine for cargo vehicles, creating a propulsion system for compact urban vehicles, and optimizing existing engines to reduce emissions. "These are 3 complex projects," analyzed Carly. "It'll take months to develop proper solutions. Then we'll have months to prove our competence," replied Emily. The event was turned into a kind of technical reality show, broadcast live online. Emily would work in laboratories with cameras, documenting every step of developing the solutions. "It's total exposure," commented Jennifer, worried. "If anything goes wrong, everyone will see." "Mom, if anything goes wrong, everyone will see that we're human. And if it goes right, they'll see that we're competent." For 3 months, Emily worked publicly on all 3 projects simultaneously. The online audience grew gradually, peaking at over 100,000 people watching live. "This has become a phenomenon," commented Ms. Wilson, responsible for the event's communication. "People who never cared about mechanics are following along." "Why do you think this is happening?" asked Emily. "Because your story inspires. It's not just about technology, it's about overcoming." The 3 projects were completed on time. The solutions presented by Emily exceeded the requested specifications and impressed even the competitors who had proposed the challenges. "We have to admit," said the representative of one of the challenging companies, "that we underestimated the technical competence of Emily's team, and we recognize that our criticisms were based on prejudice, not facts," added another. The victory in the public challenge definitively solidified Emily's reputation and that of her company. The criticism stopped, and new contracts started coming in. "Emily, you turned a crisis into an opportunity," observed Thomas. "I learned that by watching my mother. She always found ways to turn difficulties into growth." In the company's 11th year, Emily made a decision that surprised everyone. She announced she would gradually step back from daily management to focus on a personal project. "I want to write my father's biography," she explained to the team. "A biography? Not an ordinary biography. I want to document all his projects, tell the real story of how a small-town mechanic developed technologies that are only now being understood." "Is it a technical book?" "It's a book about dreams. Technical, yes, but mainly inspirational. For what audience? For young people who think their dreams are impossible, to show that innovation can come from anywhere." The company was established enough to function without Emily's constant presence. Carly took over as president. Michelle continued as executive director. Daniel led research and development. "You're ready," said Emily during the transition meeting. "Actually, you've been ready for a long time." "And if we need you for an important decision?" asked Carly. "You won't need to, you have all the necessary knowledge and experience." "But what if a crisis comes up?" "Then you'll solve it the way you always have, by working as a team and staying focused on what really matters." During the sabbatical year, Emily dedicated herself intensively to researching her father's life. She interviewed dozens of people who had worked with Michael, combed through archives, and pieced together the chronology of his projects. What she discovered surprised her. Michael wasn't just a talented mechanic. He was a visionary who had anticipated changes in the automotive industry decades in advance. "Mom, why did you never tell me that Dad was so well known?" she asked during one of the interviews for the book. "Because I didn't fully know myself," admitted Jennifer. Michael was modest. He talked about his projects as if they were experiments, not revolutionary innovations. "But weren't you curious?" "I was. But he always said it was too technical for me to understand." "And you accepted that?" "Emily, we were very young. I had other concerns. Raising you, keeping the house, working. I didn't have time to question it." "Do you regret not taking more of an interest?" "I don't regret anything. If it had been different, maybe you wouldn't have become who you are." The research for the book revealed surprising connections. Michael had corresponded with engineers from various countries, influenced young professionals who later became industry leaders, and developed solutions that were rediscovered decades later by major companies. "Your father was truly a genius," said Professor Hamilton during an interview, "but a genius ahead of his time." "Professor, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you think he knew he was sick when he was developing his last projects?" Professor Hamilton hesitated before answering. "I think he did know, yes. There was an urgency in his work during those last months, as if he were racing against time." "And why didn't he tell my mother?" "Probably to protect her. Michael was the type of man who carried his burdens alone to avoid worrying his family." The revelation deeply moved Emily. She understood that her father's projects weren't just technical innovations, but a form of paternal love, a tangible legacy he could leave for her. The book, Michael Anderson, The Engine Visionary, was launched in the 12th year of the company. The work combined technical aspects with the personal history of Michael and his family. "It's more than a biography," said a literary critic. "It's a portrait of American innovation capacity over the last few decades." The book's success was surprising. It became a bestseller not only among car enthusiasts, but also among people interested in stories of overcoming adversity. "Emily, your book is inspiring young people all over the country," Ms. Wilson said during a visit. "I've received letters from teenagers saying they were motivated to study after reading about your father. That was exactly the goal. And you? Are you satisfied with the result?" "I am at peace. I feel I've fulfilled my mission to honor my father's memory." "Your mission?" "Emily, you still have many years ahead of you." "True. But now I can choose new challenges without the pressure to prove anything." "What kind of new challenges?" Emily smiled mysteriously. "I'm still deciding." The answer came a few months later, unexpectedly. Peter, the former university student who came from a family of fishermen, approached Emily with an unusual proposal. "Professor Emily, I want to develop engines for fishing boats. Explain further. The fishermen in my region use old engines that consume a lot of fuel and pollute the sea. With the technology I've learned here, I can create more efficient and sustainable solutions." "Interesting. Do you have any preliminary studies?" "I do, and I would like to do this as a project for our company." "Our company?" "I want to open a branch specialized in marine engines, with your authorization, of course." Emily was moved. It was exactly the kind of initiative that showed how her philosophy was being carried on by the new generation. "Peter, you have my full support, and investment too." The marine engine project was a success. Within 2 years, Peter had developed solutions that reduced fuel consumption in fishing boats by 60%, in addition to practically eliminating polluting emissions. "It's impressive," said a representative from the fisheries department during a visit. "This technology could revolutionize all small-scale American fishing." "That's what we wanted," Peter replied proudly. "And do you plan to market it internationally?" "Of course, fishermen all over the world can benefit from this technology." Emily watched Peter's growth with the same pride that Edward had felt watching hers years before. "This is how a legacy is perpetuated," she said to Jennifer. "Not through buildings or money, but through people." "Did you figure that out on your own?" "I learned by observing how Daddy still influences my life, even though he's not physically present." In the company's 13th year, Emily received a tribute she considered the ultimate recognition of her career. The US government decided to include Michael Anderson's story in the official curriculum of the country's technical schools. "Professor Emily," said the Secretary of Education during the ceremony, "your father will become an inspiration for millions of young Americans." "Mr. Secretary, this is the greatest gift you could give me. Actually, it's the country that is receiving a gift. Your story proves that innovation and overcoming obstacles are possible under any circumstances." After the ceremony, Emily and Jennifer visited Michael's grave again. "Daddy, we did it," said Emily, placing a copy of the government decree on the headstone. "Your story will now inspire children all across the United States." Jennifer, now 73 years old, watched her daughter with serenity. "Emily, can I ask you a question?" "Of course, Mother." "Are you happy?" Emily thought before answering. "I am fulfilled," which is different from happy, but perhaps it's better. "How so?" "Happiness comes and goes, fulfillment stays, and I feel fulfilled knowing I used my talents to make a difference in people's lives. And personally, don't you miss having a family of your own?" "Mother, I have a family. I have you. I have the company team. I have the university students. I have hundreds of people I consider family. But it's not the same." "Perhaps not, but it's what I chose and I don't regret it." On the way home, they passed by the workshop where it had all begun. The place now housed an auto parts store, but Emily could perfectly picture what it was like 15 years earlier. "Do you remember when you were 4 years old and used to come here in secret?" asked Jennifer. "I remember everything. The smell of oil, the sound of the tools, the feeling that this was my place in the world." "And is it still?" "It still is. Only now my place is much bigger." They stopped in front of the building that housed the first unit of Emily's company. It was nighttime, but there were still lights in several windows. "Are people still working at this hour?" asked Jennifer. "They always are. Innovation doesn't stop." "Aren't you worried they're overworking themselves?" "It's not overwork when you love what you do, it's dedication. Like your father." "Like my father." In the company's 14th year, Emily decided to implement her last major project, an international technical exchange program that would take young Americans to study in other countries and bring foreign students to the United States. "I want knowledge to circulate freely," she explained to Hans Miller, who had agreed to coordinate the program in Europe. "Emily, you are creating a global innovation network." "I'm building bridges. Bridges between countries, between cultures, between generations. Your father would be impressed with the scale your dreams have taken." "Professor, can I confess something?" "Of course." Sometimes I feel I've surpassed his dreams, that I went beyond what he imagined possible. Emily, parents dream that their children surpass their own achievements. Michael didn't want you to just continue his work. He wanted you to create something of your own. And did I? You created an empire based on values. That is far more valuable than any technology. The exchange program was launched with 20 American students going to European universities and 20 foreign students coming to Emily's university. Among the selected Americans was Luke, a 19-year-old young man from a Miami favela who had impressed the selectors with innovative projects applying mechanics to urban problems. "Professor Emily, thank you for the opportunity," he said before boarding for Germany. "Luke, you earned this spot with your own talent. Make the most of every moment and come back to multiply what you learn. I will return to create solutions for my community." Perfect. That is exactly what this program is for. Among the foreign students who came to the United States was Mary Davis, a young French engineer specialized in automotive sustainability. "Miss Emily, I'm honored to study in your university," she said during the reception. "Mary, I hope you find here not just technical knowledge, but also a new perspective about innovation." "What kind of perspective?" "That the best innovations come from understanding real people's real problems." Mary quickly integrated into the university environment. Her European experience combined with the American philosophy of innovation resulted in surprising projects. Mary developed a hybrid propulsion system that can be produced with 100% domestic technology, informed Carly. "Really? And the best part, she wants to stay in the United States to implement the project. Why? Because here she feels valued in a way she never experienced in France. Stories like Mary's and Luke's repeated dozens of times. The exchange program was creating an international network of young innovators connected by the values Emily had established. In the company's 15th year came the moment Emily both feared and hoped for most. Jennifer began showing signs of fatigue related to her advanced age. "Mom, you need to slow down." "Emily, I'm fine." "You're not. I see you get tired more easily, that you forget some things. They're just signs of age. Exactly why. You deserve to rest. You've worked your whole life. And do what? Stay home watching television? Do what you always wanted to do but never had time for. Travel, see places, rest." Jennifer resisted initially but eventually agreed to reduce her activities. Emily hired a caring companion to stay with Jennifer during the day and began dedicating more time to family life. "Daughter, can I tell you a secret?" said Jennifer one afternoon while they were organizing old photos. "What secret?" "Sometimes I'm afraid you sacrificed your personal life because of me." "How so?" "You could have married, had children, lived a more normal life." "Mom, I lived exactly the life I chose to live." "But don't you miss anything?" "I miss Dad, getting to know him better. But as for the rest, no, I don't miss it." "Not even having your own children?" "Mom, I have hundreds of children. Every young person who goes through our programs is a bit like my child. Every person who manages to achieve their dreams through the opportunities we create is a bit like my family." "It's not the same thing." "Maybe not, but it's what fulfills me." Jennifer smiled and hugged her daughter. "Then I'm at peace. You've become the woman I dreamed you would be." 1 year later, Jennifer passed away peacefully in her sleep at 76 years old. It was the first time in her life that Emily felt true despair. "I don't know how I'll live without her," she said to Edward during the funeral. "Emily, your mother isn't gone. She lives in every value you practice, in every opportunity you offer to other people. But she won't be here to see the next steps. Yes, she will, in a different way, but she will." The mourning for Jennifer lasted several months. Emily drastically reduced her professional commitments, needing time to process the loss and reorganize her life. It was during this period of reflection that she made the most important decision of recent years, to create an educational foundation in memory of Jennifer. "I want talented young people to have access to quality education regardless of any circumstance," she explained to the team. What would this foundation look like? Asked Carly. Full scholarships for high school, technical school and college, not just for mechanics, but for any area where they show talent. And the funding? I'll donate 60% of my company shares to the foundation. The dividends will sustain the program indefinitely. The decision caused a stir among the team and in the media. Emily is donating assets valued at over $100 million, reported the press. I'm not donating, she corrected in an interview. I'm investing in the country's future. The Jennifer Parker Foundation was inaugurated 2 years after the company's creation. In the first year, it offered 500 full scholarships to students from all over the United States. "Mom, we did it," said Emily before Jennifer's grave on Inauguration Day. "Now any talented young person will have the opportunities you gave me." The foundation's inauguration speech was the most emotional of Emily's career. "This foundation exists because a simple woman believed in her daughter's impossible dreams," she said to an audience of over 1,000 people. "Jennifer Parker worked 3 jobs to support my education. Now, in her memory, we will support the education of hundreds of young people." The audience was visibly moved. Among those present were many of the university's first students, company employees and business partners who had followed Emily's journey from the beginning. "Today," Emily continued, "we're not just inaugurating a foundation. We're planting seeds for a better future. Every young person who receives a scholarship from this foundation will carry forward the values of generosity, perseverance, and innovation that my mother taught me." Frank, now 60 years old, was present with his entire family. "Daddy, you work with a very special person," said his teenage daughter. "Yes, I do," he replied proudly, "and I learned a lot about being a better person." Edward, despite being 85, made sure to be present. It was his last public appearance before passing away months later, leaving Emily not only eternal friendship, but also his complete collection of classic cars. "I want you to turn my collection into a museum," he had requested in his will, so future generations can learn about American automotive history. The Edward Williams Museum was inaugurated in the company's 18th year. Along with the classic cars, the museum told the story of national mechanics, including a special section dedicated to Michael Anderson and his visionary projects. "It's moving to see my father's history being preserved," Emily told Carly during the inauguration. "And your history too. My history is still being written." "Emily, can I ask a personal question?" "Of course. Have you ever thought about having children? Not biologically, but adopting?" "Why do you ask?" "Because I think you would be a wonderful mother, and there are so many children needing opportunities." Carly's suggestion echoed in Emily's mind for weeks. She was 42 years old, financially stable, and had a well-established company. Maybe it was indeed time to think about expanding the family. The decision came naturally when she met Amy Beth, an 8-year-old orphan who showed exceptional talent for mathematics and science. "She solves complex problems as if they were child's play," explained the orphanage director. "But she's very shy and has difficulty relating to other children." "May I speak with her?" "Of course." Amy Beth was a small girl for her age, with curly hair and curious eyes that examined everything around her. "Hi, Amy. My name is Emily." "Hi," she replied timidly. "I heard you like mathematics." "I do." "I liked it too at your age. Would you like to show me something you know how to do?" Amy Beth took a paper and began solving complex equations that children her age shouldn't even know. "Where did you learn this?" asked Emily, impressed. "By myself. I get books from the library and keep learning." "And what else do you like to study?" "How things work, cars, machines, computers." Emily felt a familiar shiver. It was like looking at herself 25 years earlier. "Amy, would you like to have a family?" "I would, but people don't want to adopt children like me." "Like you?" "Weird. Who like different things?" "Amy, you're not weird. You're special. There's a huge difference." The adoption process took 6 months. When it was finalized, Emily felt complete in a way she had never experienced before. "Welcome to our family, Amy," she said when she took the girl home. "Is this where I'm going to live?" if you want. Forever, forever. Amy Beth adapted quickly to her new life. Emily enrolled her in a private school, but also began teaching her personally about mechanics and engineering. "Emily, are you sure you want to influence her interests?" asked Daniel during a visit. "I'm not influencing, I'm offering knowledge. If she wants to follow another path, she'll have my full support. And if she wants to follow in your footsteps, then she'll have all the knowledge and structure needed to go far beyond where I got." Amy Beth quickly demonstrated the same intuitive talent that Emily had had in childhood. By age 10, she could already identify basic problems in engines just by listening to the sound. "Emily, your daughter is a prodigy," commented Carly after a visit. "She's a smart and curious girl, just like you were at her age. But Amy has an advantage we didn't have." "What?" "She's growing up in an environment where her talent is respected and encouraged from the start." "That's true. She'll never go through the humiliations we went through." "And is that good or bad?" Emily thought about the question. "It's good. Obstacles can strengthen, but humiliation only hurts." In the company's 19th year, Emily received a call that moved her deeply. "Hello, Emily, this is Luke." "Luke, how are you?" "Very well, I'm calling from Berlin." "Berlin? I got a position at Maverick Motors. I'm going to lead a project for sustainable engines for popular cars." "Luke, how wonderful. Emily, I want you to know everything I've achieved I owe to the teachings I received at your university. You achieved it with your talent. I always had talent, but opportunity, guidance, encouragement that you gave me. And now you'll take American knowledge to Europe." "Exactly. And when I finish this project, I want to return to the United States to start my own company, following the model you created." Conversations like this happened frequently. Former students of the university were spread all over the world, carrying with them not just technical knowledge, but also the humanistic values they had learned. "Emily, you've created a school of thought," observed Michelle during an annual university review. "What do you mean?" "Our graduates aren't just technically competent, they have a different way of seeing the world, of relating to people, of facing challenges." "What way?" "Your way. Generous, inclusive, focused on social impact." "Is that good?" "It's transformative." In the company's 20th year, Emily decided it was time for a complete transition. At 42, she felt ready to take on a more strategic and less operational role. "Carly, are you ready to be the new president?" she asked. "Emily, you are. For 5 years you've been making the main technical decisions. For 3 years you've been leading the development team. It's the natural succession." "And what will you do?" "I will dedicate myself fully to the foundation and the exchange program. And I'm going to start writing a new book." "About what?" "About how to create organizations that put people before profits." The presidential transition ceremony was held in the university auditorium. Employees from all branches, former students, partners, and local authorities were present. "When I created this company 20 years ago," Emily said during her speech, "my goal was to honor my father's memory. Today I hand over the leadership to a new generation that will honor the memory of all of us." Carly, now 35 and nationally recognized as one of the best engineers in the country, took over with emotion. "Emily, I promise to keep the values you established alive," she said. "This company will continue to be a place where talent is more important than appearance, where innovation serves people, where everyone has an opportunity to grow." The audience applauded for over 5 minutes. After the ceremony, Emily walked through the company she had created. She saw young engineers working on innovative projects, specialized technicians training new employees, administrators focused on sustainability and social responsibility. "Amy, what did you think of the ceremony?" she asked her daughter, now 12 years old. "I thought it was beautiful, Mum. But I was sad." "Why sad?" "Because you won't be working here every day anymore." "Amy, I'm not retiring. I'm changing roles." "To do what?" "To do what I've always done. Help people realize their potential." "But in a different way?" "In a different way." In the following years, Emily dedicated herself intensely to social projects. The foundation expanded to offer scholarships not just for technical studies, but for any area where young people demonstrated exceptional talent. "We want to train the next generation of American leaders," she explained during an interview. "Not just engineers, but doctors, teachers, artists, social entrepreneurs." Emily's second book, Humanized Leadership: How to Build Organizations That Transform Lives, became a worldwide reference in business management. "You're exporting a typically American management philosophy," commented an American consultant. "American?" "Yes. This combination of technical competence with human warmth is very characteristic of the United States." "I had never thought of it that way. You have a unique ability to do business without losing your humanity." Amy Beth grew up surrounded by the values Emily practiced. At 15, she had chosen to pursue a career in biomedicine, wanting to develop medical technologies for underprivileged communities. "Mum, can I tell you something?" she said during dinner. "Of course, dear. I want to be like you when I grow up." "Like me?" "Someone who uses their talents to help other people." "Amy, you already are. You just need to find your own way to apply this philosophy. And what if I can't make a difference like you did?" "Amy, making a difference doesn't mean changing the whole world. It means touching the lives of some people in a positive way. But you changed the lives of thousands of people. I started by changing one person's life, my own. The rest was a consequence." In the 25th year of the company, Emily received the greatest honor of her career. The federal government decided to create the Michael and Jennifer Anderson Award for Young Innovators. It will be awarded annually to young people who demonstrate technical excellence combined with social responsibility, explained the Secretary of Science and Technology. "It's an honor to see my parents' names associated with such an important award," replied Emily. "Actually, the award should have your name too." "No, I just continued the work they started." The first edition of the award was given to Peter, the former student who had developed the marine engines. The second went to Luke, who had returned from Germany and created innovative solutions for sustainable urban transportation. "Emily, you've created a dynasty of innovators," commented Thomas, now 80 years old. "I didn't create anything. I just offered opportunities." That's exactly what creates dynasties. Opportunities offered at the right time to the right people. At 50, Emily was at a moment of complete professional and personal fulfillment. The company she had created was established worldwide. The university was a national reference. The foundation benefited thousands of young people annually. Amy Beth, now 20 years old, was studying biomedicine at one of the best universities in the country and was already developing innovative projects in the area of medical technology for rural communities. "Mom, I want to thank you for adopting me," she said during a trip they took together to see the foundation's projects in the Northeast. "Amy, I was the one who gained a daughter, not you who gained a mother." "That's not true. You gave me a family, education, values, opportunities. You gave me a life I could never have had. You would have found your way regardless. Talent like yours always manifests itself. But maybe not in the right way. You taught me to use my talents to help other people. And that's what makes all the difference." During this trip through the Northeast, Emily met Joan, a 16-year-old girl from a rural community who had developed a handmade system to improve the efficiency of old tractor engines. "How did you learn this?" asked Emily, impressed with the creative solution. "By watching my grandfather work," Joan replied timidly. "He always said that the machine has to talk to the operator." "Was your grandfather a mechanic?" "Yes. He fixed anything with an engine in the region." "And he taught you?" "A little, but he passed away last year." Emily saw in Joan the same passion and the same natural talent she had had in her youth. "Joan, would you like to study engineering?" "I would, but I don't have the means." "What if I told you that could be arranged?" "How?" "Our foundation offers full scholarships to talented young people. Would you be interested?" Joan's eyes shone the same way Emily's had decades earlier, when she received her first real opportunity. "I'd be very interested. Then let's talk to your parents." 6 months later, Joan was enrolled at Emily's university, beginning a journey that closely resembled the path of the founder herself. "Amy, do you see this?" do? Emily asked her daughter as they watched Joan working in the laboratory. See what? The cycle repeating itself. A new generation discovering they can achieve dreams that seemed impossible. It's beautiful to see. It's the meaning of everything we've built. On Emily's 50th anniversary, the company organized a celebration that brought together people from every stage of her journey. Former students came from various countries, employees from all eras were present, and authorities and business people paid their respects. 50 years of a life dedicated to innovation and generosity, said Carly during the main speech. Actually, Emily interrupted good-humoredly, 46 years. I didn't start innovating at age 4. Yes, you did, shouted someone from the audience, when you said you could fix that car. Everyone laughed, remembering the founding story. Well, Emily said into the microphone, if I really started at 4, then it's been 46 years trying to prove that talent has no age, gender, or social class. And did you prove it? Shouted another guest. We proved it, she corrected, all of us, together. During the party, Emily mingled with the guests, moved by the number of lives she had touched over the years. Frank, now retired but still working as a company consultant, approached her. Emily, I want to thank you once again. Frank, you've thanked me hundreds of times, and I'll thank you hundreds more. You didn't just give me a second professional chance. You taught me to be a better person. You taught yourself. I just offered the opportunity. Can I tell you a secret? Of course. My 17-year-old granddaughter wants to study engineering. And do you know why? Why? Because she wants to be like you when she grows up. Emily smiled, touched. I hope she's better. Better how? Braver, more generous, more innovative. Each generation should surpass the previous one. At the end of the party, when everyone had left, Emily sat alone in the company office, looking out the window at the city she had helped transform. Amy Beth approached and sat beside her. Mom, what are you thinking about? I'm thinking about my father. How proud he would be seeing all this. Do you think he would approve of your choices? I think so. I hope so. Mom, can I tell you a secret? Of course, dear. I want to continue your work when I grow up. Amy, you should choose your own path. I've already chosen. I want to use science to help people like you did. Then you'll have all my support. And all your teachings? All my teachings. And most importantly, all the values my mother taught me. 5 years later, when Emily turned 55, she looked back with complete serenity. The company she had created employed over 2,000 people directly and benefited tens of thousands indirectly. The university had graduated over 3,000 engineers. The foundation had offered more than 10,000 scholarships. But what made her most proud was seeing how the values that Michael and Jennifer had planted in her continued to multiply through every person her organization touched. Amy Beth, now 22 and a biomedical graduate, had developed low-cost medical equipment that was saving lives in rural communities across the country. Mom, I did it, she said during a phone call. The equipment I developed was approved by the Department of Health. It will be distributed free to rural health clinics. Amy, I'm so proud of you. I learned by watching you. I saw how you always put people's well-being above profit. And now you're doing the same thing. I'm trying. I still have a lot to learn. Amy, you've already exceeded any expectation I could have had. Thank you, Mum, for everything. That night, alone at home, Emily went up to the attic one last time. Michael's boxes were now organized and catalogued, transformed into the Foundation's historical archive. She picked up the first letter her father had written to her and read it once again. My dear Emily, if you're reading this, it means you've inherited my passion for engines. Dad, she said aloud, I didn't just inherit your passion for engines. I inherited your ability to dream big and your determination to make those dreams come true. She looked through the attic window and saw the illuminated city. Somewhere down there, young people were studying at her university, preparing to change the world. In its factories, workers were producing American technology that competed globally. In offices across the country, alumni were leading innovative projects. Mum, she said, looking at a picture of Jennifer on the wall, you were right. Reality wasn't too small for my dreams. I just hadn't learned to dream big enough yet. End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave it in the comments with sincere words. Do you believe Emily made the right decisions throughout her journey? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.